Recording in progress.
Good morning, honorable members. Good morning to the Deputy Minister, Kenny Morolong. I'm not sure if the Minister is with us. In the event that she is, good morning to the Minister. The leadership of our different entities that is present here today. Let me also greet the leadership of the two departments. I'm assuming it's two departments because we should be speaking to GCIS and its entity MDDA, as well as an entity of the DCDT, being the Film and Publications Board. Members, I think we meet today maybe on a very subdued note, with today being the first day that Honorable Sithole is not able to join us in the meeting. I think on behalf of the committee, on behalf of all of us, we just want to pass our most sincere condolences to his family, all those who knew him, his political party, the IFP. I also want to request members that perhaps we honor Honorable Sithole with a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you very much, and may Job's soul rest in everlasting peace. Honorable members, on the agenda today, we are, if I could ask the Secretariat to please put up the agenda. We are meant to consider the committee report on GCIS third and fourth quarter reports. Sorry, and then the presentation then by the Minister in the Presidency on sustainability of community radio stations, briefing by the MDDA around the same issue of funding and sustainability, and then finally the Film and Publications Board on the regulation of voice-on-demand services as well as online streamers. I'm sorry, members, just to close off on the issue around Honorable Sithole, I want to request that the Secretariat seeks to get information regarding the arrangements that are being made for the laying to rest of Honorable Sithole, and if they could then share that with members as soon as they're able to get that information. Honorable members, that is the agenda of the meeting. Can I request a mover for its adoption, a seconder, and then we take apologies? I'm working Secretariat on the assumption that we do have a quorum. Thank you, Honorable Subrathi.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I move for the adoption of the agenda.
Thank you very much, Honorable Subrathi. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Honorable Vilakazi. Okay, can we check apologies, if any?
Good morning, Chairperson. We have an apology for the Minister in the office of the President, and we also have an apology for the Minister DCDT. Thank you, Chairperson.
What are the apologies, Hajira?
The Minister in the Presidency is chairing a JCPS cluster, Chair. And in terms of the Minister DCDT, we didn't get a letter. We just got an apology. The letter will be sent later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And no apologies from members of the committee, Honorable Vilakazi?
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, colleagues. I just wish to register a concern about the attendance of the Minister in the Presidency. I really cannot remember the last time that I saw the Minister other than very early on when the new government was still being formed. I wonder if we are meant to expect that the Minister is never going to come, in which case we don't have to ask for an apology, or if this means that whenever the committee is meeting GCIS, the minister has more important things to do. I just wonder if we could get clarity on that, Chair. But I'm really concerned that we just never see the minister at all.
Thank you, Honorable Vilakazi. I think that has been noted, and such concern will be communicated to the Office of the Minister. I think in the acknowledgement of the apology, Hajira, if we could respond to indicate that the committee has raised concern around the Minister's absence in the Portfolio Committee. No other apologies, I take it. So could we then go to the first item on the agenda? I believe it's adoption of the minutes of the 27th, sorry, DM. The minutes of the adoption of the minutes of the 27th of May. Secretariat, could you lead us, please?
I'm about to share the minutes, Chairperson.
Thank you. I'm sorry, DM, I saw your video coming in. Was it an intervention? Honorable Morolong? Okay, perhaps.
Sorry, Chairperson. Thank you very much. Good morning. I wish to first greet members of the Portfolio Committee, but also to indicate that while we accept the concern raised by the committee, we also wish to indicate that the minister would never wittingly take the work of the committee for granted. As it has indicated, there are other commitments, and that is why I'm here, Chairperson. You'd know that this is a week of cabinet committees. And when there is a cabinet cluster committee chaired by her, she is enjoined by the president to preside over the cluster committee. So I really wish to profusely apologize on her behalf, and also express the fact that we will convey the concern expressed by members of the committee to the minister. However, so let us also indicate that the second or third last, I think the second last Portfolio Committee meeting, the minister was in this very platform. And I remember that she did not make opening remarks indicating that the work of GCIS and its entities were delegated to me. I'm raising just as a reminder that if members would have forgotten that she was here in the second last Portfolio Committee meeting, these are the remarks she would have made. And I'm not raising those remarks to justify her absence. All I'm indicating is that she was here at some point, and this is the second last Portfolio Committee that was held. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DM, for that apology commitment to take forward the concerns of the committee. And I think the issues that you raise are also well noted. This is the minutes of the Portfolio Committee on the 27th of May was the physical meeting on the EIP as well as the SABC and the FPB. If you could move down, please, Ajira. Thank you. Next page. Thank you. The next page. You may proceed, Hajira. Thank you very much. Honorable members, those are the minutes of the meeting of the 27th of May. I did not see any hands for amendments. Can I then assume that we are agreed and ask for a mover for the adoption of the minutes? Thank you, Honorable Subrathi. Thank you, Honorable Vilakazi.
Chair,
Yes, Honorable Vilakazi.
my apologies, Chair. I am not moving to support. I wanted to make the point that there were some points that I felt that I was not able to see in the minutes in terms of what was raised. I saw many of the concerns that were raised about from quarters within the committee that were critical of the minister's actions. But I know that in the committee there were other views expressed of the move, and I don't see those on the committee unless I missed them. I don't see those on the minutes unless I missed them, Chair.
Okay.
So myself, I would not support them at this point because I feel almost as if the minutes are incomplete.
Okay, well noted. Can I request that the committee advisors have a look at the record again and check the issues that Honorable Vilakazi is raising? I'd request that before the end of this meeting, those additions, if they are missing, are made, and we can revert to the adoption of the minutes before the closure of the meeting. Dr. Madupi, Mr. Maleka, if you could assist us in that regard, please. Thank you, Honorable Vilakazi. Honorable Subrathi, you have moved, but we'll only second towards the end of the meeting. Thank you. Who is leading us in the report? Mr. Ngoma, is it yourself? The report on the third and fourth quarter report of the GCIS?
Good morning, Chairperson.
Good morning. Before you start, Mr. Ngom, there was a request in the meeting that there must be better time management in the committee. I think that issue of time management is obviously going to be a work in progress. But the most basic thing that we can start and do right at the beginning is to set out very clearly the time limits for presentations. Now, I want to propose that no presentation in the committee should exceed 20 minutes. It doesn't matter how long the presentation is. Documents are supposed to be sent to the committee no later than the Thursday before the Tuesday meeting. And if that is done, then the entities, the departments could then take the documents as read, as will any other report that comes from the Secretariat or the advisors. So having said that, Mr. Ngoma, the time is 09:15. Your 20 minutes will go up to 09:35. Any discretion of an extra 5 minutes is at the discretion of the chair, but your strict time limit is 20 minutes. If you can do it below that time, please do feel free to do so. And also the entities and the department in their presentations, I would request you adhere to the same. As far as the ministers are concerned, I don't want to gag the ministers from speaking in the portfolio committee, but we will also ask that you do not exceed 10 minutes in your introductory remarks. Thank you very much, members. Deputy Minister, Mr. Ngoma, you may proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning to you and good morning to members. Good morning to the Deputy Minister, all officials, my colleagues that will be supporting me during the presentation of this report, as well as everyone else that is in attendance, including those who are watching on Parliament social media platforms. Chairperson, as you have indicated, this is the 2024-2025 third and fourth quarter expenditure and financial report of performance and financial report of GCIS and its entity MDDA. Chair, just to briefly indicate that the committee met with the department and the entity on the 13th of May this current year. And the report really, Chairperson, it gives an overview of the presentations that were made by the department and MDDA with main focuses on expenditure and output with respect to the performance indicators and targets set for the financial year 2024-2025. Chair, the second section is just the overview of what the department was able to, the work that the department was able to conduct over the reporting period, which amongst others include those key campaigns that speak to issues of gender-based violence and femicide, the economic recovery plan, crime and anti-corruption, and others. Chair, I won't read through everything. That section just covers basically that and what was spent and to what was it spent. And then, Chairperson, the next part really summarizes what the department's performance during the third quarter. And as members would have maybe had a chance to read through the report, the indicators that the department had 42, but was only able to achieve 36. Just to proceed further, we have a graph that does show those differences in terms of performance in percentages. And Chairperson, then the next part speaks to what the department was unable to achieve per program. And then further below, the report looks into the fourth quarter performance. Safe to say also in this quarter, the department did not achieve all its targets. It had 43 indicators, but was only able to achieve 37 and did not achieve 6 of that. So which meant that it had performed 86% during that fourth quarter of 24-25. That's just the graph, the Chair, and also the same as in the third quarter, we do indicate in the report the targets that the department had not achieved. Just to go further, Chair and members, and then the report further make comparisons of the 2024 quarterly performance review from the first quarter up until the fourth quarter of the year. And members can see that the performance of the department has been consistent at 86% over the year, Chairperson. And then just to proceed further, here, Chair, we just also provide a quarter 3 and quarter 4 financial performance, just to give a little bit of meat, especially in relation to the expenditure in terms of finances that were appropriated to the department. So safe to say that members can expect that when the department presents its annual report in the fourth quarter, that the department would have spent about 98% of its budget for the financial year. Just to take further down, Chairperson, and there again, we just give a detailed breakdown of the third quarter performance. And further down, members, the expenditure per program, how monies were spent per each program. That is what the purpose of that section is. And then just to proceed further down, this is also now the reporting for the fourth quarter. You note, members, that we've put this report because these quarterly reports were considered in one day. Hence, there'll be sections reporting on the third quarter, there'll be section reporting on the fourth quarter, and there'll be sections that make comparisons of those 2 quarters. As it was in the third quarter, we also have a financial expenditure per program so that members are able to see how much was spent, how much was not spent per program, and what were the reasons for that. And then, Chairperson, to get to the main part of the report, which speaks to the observations, this is where I will then read word for word, Chair. So the observations after the committee have considered the 2024 and 2025 third and fourth quarter expenditure and financial reports. On the department, the committee noted and commended both the department and the agency on improvement of quarterly targets. It noted with dissatisfaction the underperformance by the department. Further noted with concern that fully funded posts were not filled, especially at executive level. The committee noted with concern the department underspent by over 16 million rands. The committee also noted with concern that there was no remedy on how to resolve a non-achievement of targets. And the committee noted that underspending comprises service delivery of an effective government communication system, including important campaigns such as the gender-based violence and femicide. The committee noted on the slow progress on completion of the policy document to guide government communication. The committee noted with concern that only 81% of the enterprise risk management targets were achieved. And lastly, that part of the reason for the high vacancy rate was because of natural attrition of people leaving the employee of the department. And on the agency, the MDDA, the committee noted with concern that the chairperson of the board, Prof. Matebula, chose to forfeit his board fees, as this posed a significant risk in holding him accountable in future, and that there was no legal basis to allow such an undertaking. The committee noted with concern that prolonged vacancy rate on the funded positions was likely to inhibit the agency from fulfilling its mandate. The committee noted with concern that the target on the employment equity of people with disabilities, white persons, and people of color had not been achieved. The committee noted with appreciation on the establishment of meaningful partnerships with companies such as Google, Sanlam, and the South African Agency for Science and Technology Advancement to assist the MDDA in fulfilling its mandate on media diversity. The committee noted with concern that the ongoing limitations on the lack of funding and complementary resources for community print sector. The committee noted with concern that there was 16% under collection of critical revenue, such as the Economic Development Fund. The committee noted with concern on recurring underspending, which was currently at 19 million for the quarter under review on grant expenditure. The committee noted with concern the overspending of about 400,000 on litigation and legal matters. And lastly, the committee noted with concern on the recurring non-performance and absenteeism of some board members, and this was likely to compromise the agency in fulfilling its mandate. Chair, not too sure if I can proceed to the recommendations.
Proceed, Mr. Ngoma. We'll discuss them together.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Members, on the recommendation, the committee recommends to the minister in relation to the department that there should be improvement in the vacancy rate of the department. The minister should take concrete steps to address non-achieved targets. The minister should ensure that targets are realistic, achievable, and measurable. The minister should improve on campaigns to conduct gender-based violence and femicide. The minister should put measures in place to ensure that the government communication system is effective and impactful. The minister should expedite the finalization of the white paper to ensure universal access to the government communication system. The minister should ensure that in the quarterly reporting, there was a section responding to how to resolve non-achievement of targets. And lastly, the minister should provide a detailed report of all the department's campaigns, including outreach programs, face-to-face dialogues to the committee upon adoption of the report. And in relation to the agency, the minister should ensure that there was clarity of the legal basis of some of the board members foregoing their board fees and the risk posed by this action as soon as this report is adopted, that there was clear strategy with timelines on how the agency was going to assist the community print media, and the plan must be presented to the committee during the third term. The minister should ensure that all the critical vacancies are filled by the end of the third term of the current financial year, and the agency provides a full progress report. The minister should ensure that there was a clear strategy and sustainable funding model for the agency to fulfill its mandate. The minister should ensure that there was a clear plan on how MDDA was going to improve its revenue collection mechanisms, and the plan must be submitted to the committee upon the adoption of the report. The minister should ensure that there were corrective measures for accurate projections on spending to enable the agency to achieve all its targets. The minister should ensure that there was a clear mechanism to guard against undue influence and capture by big corporations, which was likely to compromise the mandate of the agency. The minister should ensure that a report was provided on the reasons for overspending on legal matters and submit a full report upon the adoption of this report. The minister should provide a full report of all litigations for the year under review upon the adoption of this report. The minister should ensure there was a firm oversight strategy to hold the board accountable on its performance, and that the minister should ensure that there was a comprehensive report on the management of EDF and was submitted to the committee upon the adoption of the report. And lastly, the minister should ensure that the MDDA finalizes the fundraising strategy to establish an alternative source of revenue, and the report must be tabled upon the adoption of this report. Chairperson, thank you very much. That is the third and fourth quarter performance report of MDDA, and of the GCIS and its entity, MDDA.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Ngoma, for the presentation of that report. The report is obviously a report of the committee based on its observations after interaction with the department. It does not seek to put forward the department position on issues, but rather the view of the committee on issues. I'm going to open for comments, if I could just see hands. But Mr. Ngoma, while members are still gathering their thoughts, I don't think that the committee expressed a view around underperformance of the GCIS. I think that's quite a very harsh statement to raise there. I think there were areas that the committee was not happy about, and it might assist if we just indicate what it is, but we cannot make a blanket a statement about underperformance of the department. Secondly, on the issue around the chairperson of the MDDA, I stand to be corrected, but the matter was not that we would not be able to hold the professor accountable because he forfeited his board fees, but rather the issue was what legal instruments allow for the forfeiting of fees by a member of the board, and what then is the implication to safeguard the agency in terms of any issues that arise there. Also on the issue of employment equity around the MDDA, I don't know what people of color is. And I think instead of wanting to speak to different national groups, the concern is that the target on the employment equity of people with disabilities and all national groups were not being adequately achieved. Because once you say white persons and people of color, you are confusing us and the national question. And then finally, you may have to rethink the approach on the white paper, because I remember that the deputy minister was at pains to explain why the department seems to believe that the white paper is no longer the way to go. We can rather raise our concern and call for an instrument that is meant to achieve the objectives. But I think it may be a legislative overreach on us to insist that the department finalizes the white paper if the department feels they want to backtrack on the white paper. But on that one, I stand to be corrected by members. Honorable members, there is the report for your consideration. May I take hands, please? Everybody agrees. If there is agreement, may I then call for the adoption of the report with the amendments that I would have made from the chair, assuming that members are in agreement with the amendments. Honorable Potlane?
Sorry, Chair, I was moving.
Thank you very much, Honorable Potlane. May I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Honorable Matafa. So the report is then adopted with amendments. While the Secretariat is still on the floor, can we get an update on the tabling of our reports? The first one that's outstanding is the oversight report to Gauteng. It was deferred. A request that it is rescheduled, please. And then we've already adopted first and second quarter reports of both departments. Have those been manje terminology is escaping, but I will assume tabling for ATC. Mr. Ngoma?
Thank you very much, Chair. I can safely confirm that those two reports were tabled for ATC, and we will monitor the date when they will be put on the ATC for the debate, Chair. And we also take note of the amendments that have been proposed. As I indicated, that there is a team of Secretariat that is working also behind the scenes as I was presenting the report, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Can we then move to the next Can we then move over to the next item on the agenda? Thank you very much to the Secretariat. The next item on the agenda is the presentation by the GCIS on the sustainability of community media. Deputy Minister, over to you. Your 30 minutes, including your 10 minutes, starts now. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and members of the committee. The leadership of GCIS, led by Acting Director General Ms. Nomonde Mnukwa, board members and CEO of MDDA, distinguished guests. Chairperson, allow me to convey our deepest sympathies to the committee and to Parliament, to the Inkatha Freedom Party, and most importantly to the Sithole family for the tragic and untimely passing of Honorable KP Sithole. Honorable Sithole was a distinguished patriot and an outstanding lawmaker. Last week, too, Chairperson, we paid our last respects to two former journalists who were brutally murdered. It is a privilege to address you this morning on key issues shaping our media landscape. Community media is not just a platform for communication. These are vital institutions that informs, educates, and empower our people. As government, we recognize the power of community media to strengthen our democracy, foster community dialogues, and to ensure accountability. Chairperson, as South Africa enters 31 years of freedom and democracy, we acknowledge that our celebration coincides with 32 years of community media, 102 years of broadcasting in South Africa, and the 21 years since the establishment of the MDDA. All of these landmark festivities coincide with 113 years of the ANC, whose government has done an excellent job in developing three critical elements, and these are creating a three-tier broadcasting system of community, commercial, and public broadcasting, creating a regulator that regulates in the public interest, and defining community media as media owned and controlled by communities, which broadcast stories relevant to what matters most to those communities in the language of their choice. Today, we see new innovations in digital audio broadcasting, internet radio, and mobile-based radio services. These advancements offer greater accessibility and interactivity, allowing audiences to engage in real time. However, we must also ensure that the transition to digital does not leave behind those in rural and underprivileged areas who still rely on traditional radio as their primary source of information. The battle for survival, Chair, is the biggest concern for most stations and is more acute for stations serving poor rural communities. A key challenge for the sustainability of community stations is that they are dependent on the discretion of advertisers, the limited resources available to the MDDA and government advertising. As such, we've directed the GCIS to work on the community media support strategy. And during the 2024-2025 financial year, the GCIS produced a draft support scheme. I must indicate that this draft is still at the rudimentary level, Chair. The final document will be produced by no later than the 31st of March 2026. Chair, as the Deputy Minister in the Presidency, I do not take our role at the MDDA for granted because we are mindful that South Africans are at the heart of all our work and we are therefore committed to continue to support the MDDA to maintain its agenda of enabling access, ownership, diversity, and the promotion of marginalized languages and communities. At this point, Chair, let me hand over to GCIS, who will then give a presentation. They will then, through your permission again, be followed by MDDA. I thank you.
Thank you so much, DM, and good morning to you, Chair and members. Chairperson, if I may share the presentation, Sadia. Chair, while the presentation is still being shared, I think in the spirit of June month, we do need to pay tribute to
Who are we talking to here?
Oh, Chairperson, my name is Sandile.
What does Sandile look like?
Oh, Chairperson, this would be the
Thank you, Nene.
Thank you so much, Chair. With apologies for that, but maybe, Chair, if I may be allowed to switch it off as well, so that at least I don't get disturbed. But Chair, whilst I was looking at the presentation, Chair, I think it is incumbent upon all of us to pay tribute to a 17-year-old New Yorker, because it was until that decision by the young man who then forced the Federal Communications Commission of the US to allocate a certain marks as well as the spectrum that could be used for community media. Soon thereafter, Chairperson, there was a movement. So the movement that we are seeing today is the movement that was started but perfected in countries like the France as well as Netherlands. As we speak, Chairperson, South Africa is among the League of 100 Nations, which the DM has alluded to, that recognizes community media both in policy, legislation, and support. Chair, can I then move to slide number 3, Sadia? Of importance to us as a GCIS chairperson is the fact that we have to provide information to citizens so that we are able to enable them to improve their lives. I think what we also did was we did a bit of a remix as well to the twin mandate, because we are acknowledging that despite the fact that as GCIS, we run our own GCIS managed platforms, but beyond that, we rely heavily on all the community media platforms, including community media. So our interest is to see a situation where all media, especially community media, being sustainable. And we base these things not because of assumption, Chairperson, rather because the NDP on its own acknowledges the fact that access to information via print, broadcasts, and electronic media is vital for an informed and citizenry for economic development. Chairperson, if I had to go to the next slide, with your permission, Chair, I am going to then combine the following slides, slide 3, which is this one, until slide 5, because there we are providing historical context to say we are acknowledging, Chairperson, the fact that the sector is at the heart of South African government. And we are acknowledging the fact that since 1998, because this is where it started, both in terms of the 1998 White Paper on Broadcasting, the 1999 Broadcasting Act, which is the tenet in which SABC was established. That's where the need, or at least that's where we started licensing community radio station. That is long before the MDDA was established around 2002. So what we are saying, Chairperson, is that from 1998, millions and millions of rand has been spent by government in support of this. NEMISA, which in 1998 was the School of Broadcasting, was part and parcel of establishing a mechanism in which we can provide training and capacity building, both to the SABC and community media. But on top of that, Chairperson, is that we now see that there's been a serious growth of the community media sector, and this is in particular broadcasting sector, from the mere number, which was just 4, to about 300 licensed community radio station. Obviously, not all of the 300 community broadcasters are on air, which is what is troubling us. The second element that we need to recognize, Chairperson, as we move is the fact that GCIS has played a tremendous role in terms of mobilizing funding that support. But on top of that, what we've also done as GCIS is we've established a community broadcasting rate card that enables us to make sure that as we provide advocacy work, but we are able to assist in terms of ensuring that government can participate by placing advertising on community radio. The third support for GCIS as to why we're doing this work is the constitutional mandate that requires us that we must provide access to information to the citizens, and community broadcasters are that voice which is given to the community. And then largely, Chairperson, and most importantly, is that the community media and the three-tier broadcasting system in this country is, of course, the outcome of the CODESA negotiations, including the Truth and Reconciliation report that recommended that we should have a community meeting. Having said all of these things, Chairperson, if we were to move to the next slide, we are sitting at the challenge at this current situation, Chairperson, where a lot has been done between the DOC, the erstwhile DOC, as well as the MDDA. However, the challenge that we're sitting with, if you had to look at the Free State, for instance, of the 19 community radio stations that were on air, licensed and on air, we are down to 10. And the rest of the provinces, we have difficulties in terms of how we need to sustain that. The next slide. So that's and at the heart of what we are trying to do. This is an extra, Chairperson, taken from the MDDA a sustainability report, which says to us the biggest challenge which we've been given, or at least the responsibility given to us by the minister and the DM. How then do we change this thing where we don't have 7% of community media that is sustainable? Rather, we should have 77% of sustainable, so that at least we can deal with the other percentage. And these are the proposals that we are making as GCIS. The following slide. Sure, in these slides, this is the intervention. For instance, if you look at the ballooning signal distribution tariff cost, and this is largely part of the bigger problem for those that are on Centec, but there's also other challenges for those that are on self-help, because the law does provide that either you go to Centec for signal distribution, or you can then go via self-help. There are also other issues around governance challenges that we see. And of course, there's also the impact on the DTT, on Max 1 to community broadcasters. And then there are various other challenges that we're trying to fix with the intervention that we're making, including bringing about some level of capacity building, because this is a sector that requires handholding, but it's a revolving door. You need to constantly train and capacitate. The next slide. And the next slide, Chairperson, will talk about what are the immediate interventions. The first is that the ministries, the DMs, the ministers, we've agreed that there is at the level of the DGs a need for the meeting of minds, and we need to then explain this thing correctly, Chairperson. We are at the mainstay of community broadcasters in this country is largely driven by the legislation that sits within the DCDT in terms of the USAF. But on top of that, there are provisions in the ECA that can be invoked to further assist ailing community media. So it's not that these meetings are largely driven because of that, but because of the need for all of us to work together to try and make sure that we intervene. A case in point, Chairperson, is the fact that at the time when the DOC, then erstwhile DOC, was funding, part of the funding included a 2 to 3 year signal distribution tariff sponsorship by the department to community media, which you didn't have. So we are looking at those things. The Print and Digital Media Steering Committee, we want to come up with by the end of this month, we should be able to have a report in terms of how we are going to create a sense of coexistence between the different medias. In the revised sector charter code, which is handled by the Marketing, Advertising and Communication Sector Charter Council, we now have put a BE's points for private sector institutions that would place advertising on community media, including those that would be providing any support other than advertising, because there are those that have complained that they do not find that audiences that at a community media level are their own audiences. We are also revising the MDDA amendment bill. In it, essentially, Chairperson, we want to come up with what we call the Media Diversity Index. The question would be, at what point would we say we have reached we've reached a point where we've completely achieved media diversity? Would it be about numbers or would it be about content diversity? So there are various other countries that have given us that. But secondly, the question would be, how do we then use the law to ensure that in areas where there's no economic activity of any kind, the GCIS through MDDA carry that responsibility to ensure that we sustain? So we are going to create a reserve market for at least areas that are not economically active, so to speak. So indigent areas are going to be prioritized, including in terms of the law. And of course, here there's also continuing discussions between ourselves in terms of the MDDA as well as the media buying. Yesterday, the ADG presented the revised government communication policy. In it, Chairperson, it then provides that we now are putting an obligation that all government departments, whether they come to GCIS via media buying or not, there's an obligation for them to set aside 30% of their advertising towards the sustenance of community media. The next slide. Chair, can I skip this one because I've already presented on it, but safe to say that, Chairperson, in the ECA amendment bill currently, which we are supporting, based on the ITU discussions, currently there's 0.2%, but if the amendment were to be at 1% or 2% as recommended by the ITU, you can imagine if SABC was paying 5 million, if they are at 3% or it's 0.4% or to 1%, that would be massive in terms of the injection of sustaining community media. Chairperson, beside the things that we've been doing with GCIS, including the rate card, we are in constant discussion with the other players who are key to the sustainability process. One of them, obviously, and key to it, is Centec. What we have now agreed with the Centec is the development of a ideal transmission equipment kit for community broadcasters. That would also take into account whether you're at a district level, because community broadcasters, largely that are based in Northern Cape or at least Eastern Cape, who are the vast provinces, should not be treated the same as those that are in other smaller areas. What we've also agreed is that we need to provide an insurance scheme that will comply with the signal distribution license fees, license terms and conditions. We have come up with a different model, one of which is the future model going forward, if it is obviously subject to consultation. The first thing that we are looking at is the setup cost, that we are looking at putting up a once-off cost that would be whether it's transmission, audio processing, and the installation cost. And there are different players that we want to come to the party for the funding of this. And then, of course, there are going to be different options in terms of the support and maintenance, one of which would be the monthly tariffs that are calculated and the spares that are going to be bought between both parties. So it's a joint collaboration in terms of buying space. But also there's an element of creating of the need for us to create technical expertise within communities around training, including the call center support as well as the on-site. And the third option, obviously, would be the analysis of these monthly stats, which would be providing capacity and all of that. And there are various other party costs that would be looked at in terms of who's going to then, who will bear the brunt of some of the costs, as we've indicated. So I'm not going to spend time on this one. But this is just the framework that when you look at the community support scheme, it's going to be looking at the totality of the services that we provide. Next slide, Stan. So Chairperson, as GCIS, this is what we've done. We've done a pilot right now on advertising GCIS vacancies on community broadcasters. And this is part of the additional intervention that we are creating for community broadcasters. The pilot is going well. I'm sure once the pilot stage has terminated, a full report shall be given to you via the ministry. Where we are, Chairperson, since the beginning of the media buying process, which started in 2011, 2012, we've spent about 275 million on community radio station and 71 million on community TV. And that's quite a substantial amount of money, that is, but we know that more can still be done. The next slide will demonstrate in terms of the geographical representation, because where we had more money, for instance, in terms of the spike in numbers, we would spend more. For instance, we'll have more talk shows because we utilize our property, which is our radio station, working with Centrex so that at least we can even provide live programming to almost 110 something radio station. The reason why I'm saying 100, it fluctuates between 100 to 110. Would have loved it that we are able to broadcast to everybody, but due to some of the areas that I've touched on in terms of the governance issues, we are unable to do that. The next slide. You can skip this one as well. Skip that. I've touched base on this one, Chairperson. The next slide, Chair, the principle that we have now established as mandated by the Minister and the TM was to come up with some kind of a framework that will make sure that we support. And these are the source documents that we based our community support scheme on. We're not going to spend time. It's safe to say that there's always been reports that indicate to us the need for intervention by government. The next slide. Yeah, so this one is just the principles under which the community broadcasting support scheme is going to be run. We do need the criteria, but in a nutshell, Chairperson, we want to run the scheme for the next 5 years and see how it's going to pan out. But I think we are confident that the outcome, which will involve a public process with key stakeholders, will get us into a system where we have a comprehensive report. The next slide will talk about the principles that we've enrolled. The principles that, at least the objective, is that we recognize that we need to sustain community broadcasting. We recognize that other than government, we need to attract more investors, both from the private sector and other private bodies. And with that would be through the use of the advocacy function, which is legislated as part of what the MDDA should be doing. So we will be working with the MDDA, working with the different provinces as well, because we recognize that even as the NDP states, that creative industry, part of which community broadcasters and community media is included, is such a critical mechanism for not just poverty alleviation, but it also talks about the need for us to ensure that we provide jobs and poverty, but also provide information and diversify our media as well. The next slide. So here, Chairperson, I've just highlighted that we are mindful of the fact that the national fiscus is constrained, especially within the GCIS. And to that extent, what we are now recognizing is that there's a need to tap into existing funds. So for instance, we've got municipalities, for instance, that have up to about 189 million rand on communication budget. And what we want to do is that we can tap into those so that the provinces and municipalities are able to support. But key to that would always be the fact that editorial independence would be maintained, that even if you are putting money or funding for sustainability. We do not. A case in point, Chairperson, is the government of the people of the Free State, where, for instance, through the Premier's intervention, that the Premier's summit on community media. And already we're told that the Department of Arts, Sports and Culture has already dispensed a minimum of about R1 million to each of the distressed community media. So it's part of the support that we have been advocating. And the second last, Chairperson, the second last slide. Yeah, Chairperson, just this is part of what we are saying, that I think we pride ourselves that in terms of the international best practice, we are there in terms of the countries that are named in the top 100 league, whether it's the Nordic countries, but we still feel that there's more that we can still do in light of the sustainability. Hence, we're proposing that in the last slide. In the last slide, we are proposing, Chairperson, that we would want collaboration at local level so that even the municipalities can carry in their IDPs, ICT, because broadcasting, including community media, is but one component that can be supported once it is in the IDP. The other thing that we want to try and do, we want to create a comprehensive support for community media so that we avoid duplication. As I've indicated, there's one person doing something towards community media, but because we will be spreading ourselves too thin, we rather come up with a community broadcasting support scheme 2.0 that would look at igniting the sector for at least the long-term sustainability. Key to this is the need to build technical capacities at the sector level, because we are well aware, Chairperson, that because it's a revolving door, someone is going to be empowered and leave. So the constant requirement for training and capacity building is going to be at the heart of what we do. And we are going to balance that with the need for us to ensure that the sector as governance are cleaned, and then that communities participate, not just in terms of the AGMs, because sometimes the AGMs and the voting AGMs are used to mobilize communities to displace one group by another, but it would be an institutionalized process so that even when you walk into a radio station as a community media, no one is going to tell you that I did this, because you are doing it on behalf of the community. And therefore, that community should have access to the financials, should have access to everything, including influencing the programming of the community. With that, Chairperson, I do believe that my 20 minutes has ended. Thank you so much.
I have never been so impressed by you, Mr. Nene. I've never known you to keep time, so thank you. Thank you very much, with 3 minutes to spare. Honorable members, with your permission, I'd like us to take the MDDA because they are speaking on the same issue. Then we can come back for a discussion on both presentations. Through you, Minister, I'd like to invite the MDDA on their presentation on the sustainability of community media. Kgotsong, CEO.
Khotso Chair, I was just waiting for the chairperson of the MDDA board to lead us into the discussion, Chair.
Thank you very much. I did not see you on the platform, Professor Matebula. Please do come in.
Thanks, Chairperson. I am on the platform. I think I'm trying to show my face, but somehow isn't.
We can see you, sir.
Okay, thanks so much, Chairperson. Chairperson, I am joined, I'm not going to waste your time. I am joined by the CEO, the CFO, and an executive in the team. It's quite important, Chairperson, to indicate that a substantial part of what we are going to talk about, which is why I will ask the CEO to be rather brief, has been covered by Mr. Nene in his presentation, because this presentation is dovetailing on each other, and there's been much consultation between the two, the entity and the department. So to that extent, Chairperson, I think the bulk of the time will best be spent in answering questions. So I will ask the CEO to be rather brief. Thanks so much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Chair. CEO?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson of the committee, members on the platform, Deputy Minister Morolong, Chairperson of the MDDA board, and other leaders of public entities, colleagues on the platform. Thank you very much. Chair, with your permission, I will switch my video off and get into the presentation as guided by the Chairperson of the board. We'll focus on those areas which would be key to move the discussion forward. Chair, just to indicate that the MDDA is presently in consultative discussions with the sector to discuss issues relating to their sustainability, to also refine the sustainability model at the back of the presentation or the report that was published in the year 2024. Just to highlight, Chair, that there are a number of challenges that plague the community or plague the community and small commercial media sector. Mr. Nene discussed the issues relating to sustainability, and that only 7% of the community media indicated that they are sustainable, with the majority saying that they are partially sustainable, and 19% saying that they are not sustainable completely. Chair, the sector that's affected the most is community TV. And when we look at the factors that influence the sustainability, is the community engagement, the technology that is used to enable the broadcast, as well as the signal distribution technology, economic factors, Chair. Unfortunately, there hasn't been a lot of diversity in how many media houses are able to draw revenue, and there are considerations for them to look beyond just the advertising revenue, while that remains a key pillar. Political, in the form of the political and legal, particularly for the broadcasters, the need to comply with related regulation, including ICASA. Content expertise are also something that's very important, in that we are recognizing that there's a need for skilled content creators at these community media space sector to be able to ensure that there's sustainability. After television, the most affected is the print sector, and this is largely because there's been a migration by audience members from the traditional print reading to more online, but also a shift from advertising revenue, or where advertisers are advertising in the main on the more digital platforms. While we recognize that there is a need for these media platforms to exist to ensure that the communities who have limited access to internet, whether from an infrastructure point of view, in the quality of the connectivity, or the cost of access to the internet in itself, it remains very important, as many South Africans still largely rely on accessing the information through the print, community radio, as well as community TV. Chair, I will then just move to the sustainability pillars, or the strategic pillars that the MDDA is presently working on, where we are looking at supporting community media in these areas. The first pillar is technology, digital innovation, and signal distribution. For the broadcasters, the MDDA is presently collaborating with Centec to ensure that we are able to digitalize the community media sector by making them available on the Centec Free Vision platform for streaming as well as podcasting. We are linking that also with related digital skills to enable for them to be able to deliver and perform on those platforms. We are also supporting the publishers with the developments of their website, but also understanding the usage of search engine optimization to ensure that they're able to reach the communities that they're in. While this support remains and is key and is important, we are also saying that the approach should be hybrid, that the broadcasters and the publishers aren't moving fully online. It's a combination of the two. The second pillar is corporate governance and compliance. There is a challenge within the community and small commercial media sector to comply with related regulation for the broadcasters, ICASA, but also other areas of compliance like tax compliance, but for those also who are registered on the CSD platform to ensure that they're constantly compliant to be able to access the advertising opportunities that come from government, but also essentially, Chair, a good governance structure just essentially is indicative of an organization's ability to be able to perform in meeting its strategies. The MDDA has been running a number of these workshops. We were in the Northwest, we will be going to KZN, as well as the Western Cape, carrying out the governance workshops to assist the sector to be able to perform optimally. The third pillar is content generation, professionalization of the sector, and this we seek to do through skills and capacity building. And the work that the MDDA has been doing here has been training that is tailored for community media. The agency has also signed a memorandum of agreement with MIC CETA to look at skills that are required to support the community media sector to be able to deliver content that resonates with their audiences, but also we are looking at partners that will be able to develop this content in languages that those community media practitioners would understand best. And our work continues in this area. We will be reporting to appraise the committee through a platform or session similar to this. The next one is the fourth pillar is transformation of the print media sector. Again, Chair, just to indicate, this is still a multi-pronged approach in that we aren't saying that there should be a move completely from the digital platform. We are saying that there have been some changes in how the sector is currently operating. But where community media is concerned, we are also recognizing that the community publishers continue to publish in languages that are specific to the areas that they are in, and therefore the content they generate needs to remain within those areas. But developing content that is in Ndebele or in Chivenda or Sesotho, made available online, also assists in growing content available online in the various indigenous languages that we have in the country. The fifth pillar is consolidating government support. Now, I think this is very key, chairperson of the committee and members on the platform, to ensure that we are able to provide the right level of support to ensure that there's sustainability within the community media space. There's great collaboration between the MDDA, GCIS, and some other public entities, but there is a need to have a more strategic approach, and that is one of the key pillars that will assist us in building a more resilient, future-forward community media sector. The sixth pillar is audience measurement. Now, for us to unlock opportunities for advertising within the community media space, reliable, credible data is required, both for the publishers, the broadcasters, as well as the content or the figures that are made available online. The MDDA has got very strategic partnerships and approaches in how we are able to deliver this. Yes, the costs are much higher than what we are able to bring forth as the MDDA, but efforts have been in place for us to fundraise so that we are able to support the community media, the publishers, the broadcasters, and additionally to provide the online measurements. I'm happy to say that we are presently running a program with ABC, with the publishers, to ensure that we are able to verify their printing and distribution, and that will provide some level of credibility, particularly to the advertisers on community media publishers and their data being available. Chair, with your permission, I just want to spend the last few minutes focusing on the sustainability strategies that are under consideration for the MDDA. Is that there is a need for these shared service approach or a hub approach, but also the community media sector needs to diversify its revenue and revenue strategies. So does the MDDA. The biggest source of our income presently is derived from the USAF levy and from the commercial broadcasters, thereby ring-fenced to support the community broadcasters. We have to also encourage particularly the community broadcasters who are in areas where they are able to self-transmit, and this will assist them in dropping their cost of transmission with Centec. But this also is a cost where the MDDA is able to support for the projects that apply for funding, who do have an ECNS license that will enable for them to self-transmit. These are discussions that we have been having, and the need for grant funding to be diversified, to focus on sustainability post the initial funding. And this is largely dependent on the agency's ability to also resource mobilize and bring in funds to further support the community media sector. Chair, thank you very much. I will stop the presentation at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, CEO and Chairperson, for those additions to the, I suppose, the GCIS presentation. We truly appreciate that. Honorable members, that is the presentation on the sustainability of community media. You'll remember that this issue arises after the oversight visit that we had paid to Gauteng, where the issue of sustainability of the sector was raised quite sharply. In fact, in the roundtable discussions that we had at the GCIS building, the key focus was obviously on the sustainability of the sector. Can I then open for discussions on the presentations that have been made? I will give each member no more than 10 minutes to ask their questions, and then we will come back to the entities and the departments for comments. May I see hands, please? Thank you very much, Honorable Matafa. You'll be followed by Honorable Subrathi and followed by Honorable Vilakazi. In that order, please, Honorable Matafa, and then Honorable Malaysia. Honorable Matafa.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning to you once again, members and guests on the platform. Chair, thank you for the presentation.
Please favor us with your face, Honorable Matafa.
My apologies, Chair.
Thank you.
Are you asking for me to put my video on, Chair?
Yes, thank you. We see you now. Thank you, Honorable Matafa.
Is it better?
Much better, thank you. No user problem there. We can see you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With the rain, my network normally gives problems, so I apologize for choosing to switch it off without your permission. Chair, I just have a few questions, having thanked the presentations. Just on the GCIS, I will only have two and then maybe one or two on the MDDA. On GCIS, Chair, we just wanted to find out the challenges currently facing community broadcasters as identified by GCIS, and how do the issues like signal debt, governance, and lack of advertising expertise threaten sustainability? And the second one is just on the issue of addressing financial and operational crisis in community media. And the question would be, how can we use the Universal Service Access Fund to assist community sustainability in addressing these particular pressures that they face? And on MDDA, Chair, is just to find out the steps that can be taken to ensure that community and small commercial media organizations are supported and growth takes place, and how do they contribute to media diversity in South Africa? Because we know that they are located in communities, and in the main, the biggest communities are the previously disadvantaged. So how can then we ensure that there is diversity on their operations? But thank you very much for the presentations, Chair. They were very clear and well received. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Matafa. Honorable Subrathi.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much, Chairperson. And let me welcome the presentation, and let me also welcome, Chairperson, that we have this item on the agenda. Let me also, share my sentiments that the sustainability of community media is a crucial element of ensuring that we have an informed citizenry. And community media from radio stations played a significant part in the dark days of apartheid and subsequent to that to keeping our people informed. And I think it still remains the mainstream way through which our communities receive information, and particularly communities in the rural areas where connectivity, etc., for internet remains a challenge. So let us therefore begin by saying that this is a huge responsibility that this committee has to ensure their sustainability, and therefore I welcome, Chairperson, the fact that you had proposed this on the agenda. Let me also reflect on our oversight visit to the Eastern Cape as well, where we met with a few radio stations and I think followed up in Johannesburg. Clearly, this common thread came in terms as Honorable Matafa has highlighted the issue surrounding the signal debt, which remains a concern. So, Chairperson, maybe for GCIS, my two questions there would be is that how does the revised GCIS rate card aim to improve revenue streams for community broadcasters, and what pilot initiatives have been tested? Another question for GCIS would be what long-term policy and legislative measures are being developed to ensure the sector's sustainability and how they align with NDP? Chairperson, let me at this point emphasize that I think there needs to be a focused discussion on this topic of sustainability. And we've always in GCIS been challenged with what I've been a small budget. Now, what's precluding us for asking for more? Why are we not going to Treasury and asking for more, given the fact, as I indicated, that community media, radio, print, and community TV, but in that order, remains possibly the most important and easiest way of our people remaining connected to us. Another matter that came up during our roundtable discussions in Johannesburg, and I know one of the organizations reached out to me because I expressed an interest in, particularly in print media. There's various other, I think it was the National Association of Broadcasters or Publishers, I'm not quite sure. But one of the organizations did a presentation and they are distributing their newspapers in the rural areas. And so is government distributing our our newspapers. So the question was, why are we duplicating the process of distribution? Why can't there be greater collaboration between those media, those publications?
Honorable Subrathi, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. It has been raised with me that you are wearing party regalia. Can I request that you switch your video off, please?
No problem. Sorry about that, Chairperson.
Thank you.
Would that be much better, Chairperson?
I can't see you properly. You may proceed?
Thank you so much. Chairperson, so the point I was making was that why can we therefore not look at how we can collaborate with those publishers that are distributing those newspapers in the rural areas, as opposed to us doing the same thing? So that has been come. In fact, they sent an email to me, which I forwarded it to Secretariat, or rather I forwarded it to GCIS with the intention that they wanted to have that collaboration. Chairperson, maybe let me just move on to MDDA and just ask two questions of them maybe on MDDA. So the report in MDDA reports highlights a 7% of the, yes, on MDDA, the report highlights that only 7% of the CSCM sector is fully sustainable. Now, what are the major challenges affecting sustainability? and what challenge is cited as the most critical of these? And the second one for MDDA is, how do sustainability levels differ between community radio and community small commercial print media, particularly in areas like political support and content expertise? Jefferson, let me conclude by saying that this presentation and this discussion for me is very important, Chairperson. As I emphasized, it is important for this committee to ensure that we find a sustainable model, that we are able to explore means and processes that will ensure that our community media remains sustainable to serve our people. Thank you so much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Subrathi. Honorable Vilagazi.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning once again to everybody on the call. Just get myself sorted out. Thank you for the presentations. I just have a few questions, and I had questions all over the place. I've tried to cluster them in sort of clear categories. And the first one that I'll ask has to do with measurement of the impact of ad spend. Now, GCIS reports that it spent over 400 million Rand on community media between 2002 and 2011 and claims audience growth. Can GCIS explain how it measures the impact, not just the volume in terms of audience, of ad spend on community media? Specifically, what indicators are used to track improvements in financial sustainability of community media, content relevance, and democratization of communication that is mentioned in the reports? And does GCIS have a framework for this multifaceted framework? If so, can they share it, please? The second point has to do with departmental compliance to the 30% mandate. The report mentions efforts to aggressively mobilize departments to allocate 30% of their advertising budgets to community media, but we consistently hear from GCIS that this is not followed. Now, how many departments are currently compliant on this 30% advertising spend, and what enforcement compliance? Thirdly, on funding and structural sustainability, both the GCIS and MDDA have listed interventions aimed at improving sustainability of community media, including training, partnerships, mobilization of ad spend. However, these interventions appear to me short to medium term, and the number of sustainable projects as presented is worryingly low. Only 7% we heard of broadcast media is sustainable. And and much of community media, even as we see in oversight visits, are struggling to remain operational. In addition, I was a bit concerned when I heard from the DM that a document detailing a strategy around revitalizing or strengthening funding for the sector will only be ready in March of 2026. And there's still a whole year almost for struggling organizations to make it through to then. So my questions then are, what have been the impact of these interventions that are listed by MDDA and GCIS so far? And what concrete steps is GCIS taking beyond just capacity building to address the structural financial barriers which are listed in the presentation that undermine the sector's long-term viability? In particular, the recurring Centec and ICASA outstanding fees. And why is there no funding from USAF in spite of the Section 88 stipulation in the ECA which makes provision for such funding. And then I noticed also from the GCIS report that ad spend on community media fluctuates significantly from year to year. What explains these fluctuations? And in particular, the spike in 2020, 2021. And it made me wonder, does GCIS have a long-term funding strategy aligned with sector sustainability? Or is this spend just determined on an ad hoc and then on a campaign-by-campaign basis? And as I to go towards conclusion, Chair, I was concerned about data accuracy and reporting integrity in the report. There appear to be errors in the report statistics, such as saying that an increase from 3 million listeners to 8 million listeners is a 25% increase when it's a 167% increase, and contradictory TV market share data. Page 6 of the report is totally confusing to me. And there are also incomplete sentences as well as spelling and grammatical errors. One would wish, and in fact, one would expect that GIS would prioritize quality assurance on a report to be presented to the portfolio committee and the public. And in addition to that, this raises some key questions in my mind in terms of how does GCIS ensure accuracy and transparency in its reporting? And how are its performance and impact claims, or are they independently verified? And if so, how? And then finally, Chair, another issue that was of bother to me is on the 24th of May, there was a maritime fair in Durban. And one of the entities displaying with a stand for display was the GCIS. When I engaged the team, I discovered that they were from Pretoria. They had flown to Durban from Pretoria. And when we spoke about some of the pamphlets they distributed, there was one on GovZA, the GovZA radio, or whatever that intervention is, which they could not explain to me. And further, a link on one of the pamphlets that they had that I went on did not work. It was a broken link, and yet this was being distributed to the public. So it made me wonder, what process does GCIS follow to ensure that staff deployed are properly briefed on the materials they distribute? And then what justification is there, or what justification was there in this case that I may not be aware of, for flying in officials from Pretoria instead of using local staff? And how does GCIS evaluate the cost effectiveness of such deployments? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Vilakazi. I had initially thought that 10 minutes per member was an arbitrary number, but now having used you, I know that it's just the perfect amount of time, allows you to finish your thoughts completely. Honorable members, Honorable Elisha, I think you were the last hand. Honorable Elisha? Have we lost Honorable Elisha? Okay, we'll give her an opportunity then when she comes back. Let me just add a few questions. I think, yeah, most of them have been answered by the members, but I'm interested in your engagement with Sentech, where you say that you want to engage Sentech around the signal distribution tariff. We obviously carry a dual mandate as this committee, oversighting Sentech as well, and we would be quite aware of the financial pressures on Sentech. So what does the model that you're wanting to engage Sentech look like? And is it not to the detriment of Sentech itself? ICASA issued, if I'm not mistaken, a week or two ago, an invitation for applications for community radio stations. I stand to be corrected. What engagements are you having with ICASA in this regard? Because if we're talking about only 7% of community media being sustainable, and on the other hand, the same government is busy calling for applications for more. Where are you seeing the balance, and is it not something that could be better managed at this time? Insofar as the audience measurement tool, we've been speaking about this a lot. Can we get a concrete progress update when we expect that tool to be finalized? Similarly, with the Centec Free Vision platform. Honorable Alicia, I will come to you just now. The government support to community media, especially at municipality level, provincial governments, as well as our state-owned enterprises. I do want to raise again and push the question of how are you going to enforce this? Because this committee has been holding on to the hope that that white paper that you seem to be discarding around government communications would then provide the policy basis to hold people accountable. So in the absence of that white paper, you've been trying, I don't know, I think I think Mr. Nene said we're celebrating almost 30 years of community media. I may have missed the number of years exactly, but you've been trying to persuade, cajole, influence. None of that has worked. There was an attempt then at putting together the white paper that seems to be dropped. So how are you going to ensure this? And I need you to understand, DM, that we're looking for practical interventions into the problems that we're facing. And I think part of the problem is that it doesn't seem to be quite coming through. On the shared services as a model that you're proposing, can you elaborate? What are you seeing as shared services? I'm also keen to find out, I did inquire at one point why there's no government printing press that supports community media, because community print media in particular, the majority of the cost that they have to bear is on printing. And if we know this, why can government not have intervened? Or if you had intervened, what happened to that intervention? I took it upon myself to try and check with government printing works under the Department of Home Affairs. And they indicated that obviously they don't print newspaper quality, so they're not able to help. But a collaboration perhaps with government printing works, is that something that you would have considered? The Competition Commission funding. I think we have asked you before, but if you could please explain again how those funds are assisting community media and how much would have been disbursed to date. Also, I think my second last question is the revenue generating mechanisms. You say that in your presentation, you want to encourage community radio, community TV, and so forth to seek alternative revenue generation mechanisms. What does that look like? Where is it worked? And what is the role of MDDA then in getting that to happen? Let me stop there. I think the USAF has already been spoken to, so I won't repeat it. Honorable Alicia, please do come in.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Maybe allow me, Chair, to just, personally send condolences to the family of Babu Stol. This is our first meeting without him, and it's quite sad that our meetings are going to be like this now, without him. Deputy.
Thank you, Honorable Alicia. Please also put on your video. Thank you, ma'am.
I've got a problem. I've been trying to run it, Chair. I think we're going to have a problem. I sent you a message to say, can I have it off? Because it keeps kicking me out of the meeting when I turn it on.
Thank you, ma'am. You may proceed.
All right.
Colleagues, can you hear Honorable Alicia? Is the problem on my side?
No sound, Chair.
No sound.
There's sound now. Please proceed.
Okay. I'm still fine, Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
I was saying, Chair, the report admits that only 7% of community media is sustainable. Yet we've got GCIS bragging about spending almost 500 million over the 14 years. I see in the report that funding also has dropped, and I just wanted to know, maybe the DM can tell us why they are starving like community media while they are injecting, or maybe the government actually, because then maybe it's not a department issue. Maybe then the question would be, why is the GNU starving community media while injecting millions in issues of less importance? For instance, Chair, how does GCIS justify that 247,000 is allocated to community TV? And we know that this is not even the budget of the protection of a minister's VIP protection. So how do they justify that? Is the intention to kill community media or to make sure that it's sustainable? GCIS also claims community media is independent, but the report shows 59% of advertisement spending goes to radio and 25% goes to print. And these are mostly controlled by big players like Media 24 and Caxton. So I wanted to find out, Chair, why are small Black-owned community publishers like Alex FM are always getting the crumbs while the white-owned giants dominate? You know, we had a guy when we were doing oversight in Gauteng, and he was sad because he was closing his publication that he started out of his own pocket, and he had a passion for it. But because there was no funding for him, he was shutting down. But we still have, you know, most of advertisement and money going to big players instead of these people that are in our communities. The report, Chairperson, also talks about transformation since 1994, but 30 years later, only 7% of community media is sustainable. And the funny thing is that in the steering committee, the steering committee includes CEOs from Media 24 and independent media, which are the same monopolies that are blocking Black ownership. So I wonder if really we expect a radical economic change with these people at the helm. So also it's concerning, and I want to know from GCIS why they have not enforced the Triple BEE Act to transfer ownership to community airways. Then maybe the deputy minister can tell us why they haven't done that, because they are blaming digital migration for killing community TV. Yet we've got Centex signal debt that is caused by the same government delays and corruption. So it's confusing to me, like, if they are blaming digital migration, and then we've got Centex who is you know, saying it's the government and the corruption that is causing these delays. We know, Chair, that in Nelson Mandela Bay TV collapsed after GCIS failed to pay the signal fees. So we see that the communities continue to suffer because of the incompetence of the department. So maybe they can clarify those issues to us. And maybe to MDDA, I just want to know, CEO, seeing that government funding for community media is so low, I just want to know if maybe you have a plan to force private companies to pay their fair share. Because the report shows that 77% of community media lacks funding. So I wonder if maybe you ever go to government and maybe propose to government to tax big corporations like MultiChoice and MTN to fund your projects instead of leaving them only to beg for donations. And maybe the other one, Chair, I also want to know how MDDA will stop the political interference in community media to ensure that they stay independent. We remember the issue was raised also when we were doing oversight at a community radio station about the political interferences and things like that. The report does say that media must be free. So I want to know how they are going to make sure that that happens. And maybe the last one, Chair, I just want to know how, or if there's even an intention to ensure that community media is run by the people, not elites. Because what we are finding now is happening in community radio stations. We see that even the boards are hijacked by these middle class NGOs. So how are we going to make sure that these boards reflect, the local workers and maybe the unemployed youth? Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Milishe, for your questions. Thank you, honorable members. I will now hand over to you, Deputy Minister. It is 10:41. You have 30 minutes for consolidated responses from the department and the MDDA. Thank you, DM.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm going to ask that GCIS should start with a response, followed by MDDA, and I will wrap up. Through your permission, Chair.
Thank you, DM. Is the acting DG in the house? Yes, DG.
Good morning, Chairperson, honorable members, all ministers, deputy ministers, and all colleagues. Chairperson, I'll just be brief, and then Mr. Sandilenene will help me with some of the responses. Basically, the 30% set aside that we're talking about, Chairperson, is in the draft government communication policy that is going through the cabinet cycle from this week. When I'm saying from this week is that we presented at FOSAD yesterday. So FOSAD supported that it must be taken through the the cabinet cycle. So that 4% is the one, that policy is the one that is going to enable us as a department to have a tool to force government. I think the question from Honorable Vilakazi was that how are we going to be forcing the whole of government? So that policy will be the tool that will enable us to force the whole of government to comply to the policy, so that we are able now to ensure that the departments, they all spend 30% of their communication budget towards the community media in its entirety. So that's number one. Number two, in terms of the strategy that we are developing as an institution, the reason why we are putting much, it is because there's lots of consultations that have to take place along the way, meaning which consultations with the sector and consultations amongst us as government, and then process it through for finalization and approval. Hence, we are putting the process and the timelines. And the other questions, Chairperson, I just want to quickly refer to them because I tried to write them down. And then the other questions around the money that we spent on community radio, the fluctuations, particularly between 2020 and 2021, it was because during that period we had COVID and there was specific budget allocated to GCIS for communication. And that budget, then we were able to ensure that a chunk of it goes to community media, because we wanted that the messages be communicated, especially in languages that and in content that people would be easy for them to understand and follow through. And the issue around the particular administration on why we are starving community media, Chairperson, I think it is all linked to the fact that whilst we encourage and motivate that there be use or utilization of community media in all our communication, and especially with the media buying that we do as an institution, there is no tool that regulates or enforces that it must be so. Hence, we decided to put it as part of the policy. Chairperson, without wasting your time, I will allow Mr. Sandile to assist with other questions. If there are any that he won't answer, then I will respond to them and then the DM will finalize. Thank you.
Thank you, Norman. I think Chair, there was a question. The first one is that currently the model that we have presented is the one that was developed by Centec in consultation with us. So they are comfortable with the signal distribution future model that they are presenting. So we are fine with that. The other part, Chairperson, you are quite right. So we were directed by the minister in the DM to engage ICASA so that we avoid regulating for failure. Because the more we license more radio stations, when we are not prepared in terms of the financing and the long-term sustainability, that's regulating for failure. So that discussion has taken place, and we are continuing with that discussion so that just like they did before, that is ICASA, they can put a moratorium in place so that we are able to. And the moratorium, if we were to remind members, there was a moratorium that was put by ICASA on community broadcasting, largely because we're looking at the so-called primary markets, because it had been clustered that there were so many community radio stations in metros. So we are appealing for the same. Chair, the idea that we've also been given by the minister and the DM is really to ask the question, at what point are we going to have the media diversity? At least we'll reach a point where we said there's media diversity. So that's another long-term intervention that we are trying to do, including empowering the MDDA so that they are able to make policy recommendations to the minister, and also some of the recommendations to the regulator on what constitute community media of the future, because we're still looking at this thing, but we have not even begun to talk about how then do we define community media in the broadband and multi-channel environment. Are we still going to be using the geographical communities, or we are going to then continue using communities of interest? So there are debates that we are ensuing. In the same vein, Chairperson, we want to clarify that in terms of the figures, broadcasting figures are only recognized if they come from BRC. And the challenge with the BRC, which was the predecessor to SAR, Chair, is that for a community media outlet like any other broadcaster, you need to pay an amount. I think it's ranging between 10 to 20,000, so that you can get that figure. Once these figures are actually, because they would have been sanitized, then we have figures that are trusted by everybody in the sector. It's a similar fashion that we are also experiencing around community print, that you require the ABC certificate, Audit Bureau of Circulation figures. We were also entrusted by the minister, and I'm glad that the MDDA is working on it, to look at the different support mechanism that can be provided to our community print so that we can assist them on either the figures that are going to be coming from BRC, or that the MDDA can pay a portion of that amount towards ensuring that the figures are, or alternatively, we develop what has been known as the grassroots Audit Bureau of Circulation, which will look at the audience figures of the community media. Now, Chair, the other element which you want to touch on is, and I think if it came out wrong, Chair, we want to say that was not the intention. The intention for us in terms of the different challenges facing community media would largely be seen through our graphical representation that one, it depends on the number of campaigns and the budget we have. For instance, in COVID, we had quite a number of budget. There was a dedicated budget, we did more. But secondly, it's the rate at which community media outlets are compliant, because if they are not compliant, we are unable to. Hence, we say, on average, we take about 110, 108, but we would love to have a situation where we have more than that. So on the question around USASA, Chair, I want to at least explain it a little bit, Chair, that one, USASA by its very creation is a regulator. It's a regulator that defines who is underserviced and who's underserved. That's why USASA would always define areas that do not have enough or adequate ICT services, postal, as well as media. So we want to do that. The second element around that is that we would want in the same use of money. So there's this amount that is used. It has been used, for instance, in Umsinga and many other areas where the Minister of DCDT, after USASA would have defined the area, then they will go and make sure that the area is covered. We would want to say the same thing, or at least make an appeal to our DCT colleagues, whom we are working very well with, in terms of exercising that provision so that the broadcasting element can also then be used. Chair, in the nutshell, there was a question around so there's a question around DTT. What we are simply saying is that we are not blaming DTT. We are simply saying the community broadcasters being on Max 1 present a challenge in terms of the community broadcasters. And we've brought this thing to the attention of the DCDT as well as the regulator in terms of the regulations. Why is this a challenge? Currently, Chairperson, as the CASA was converting, they only were able to convert a few number of existing terrestrial network service providers in the community media space. Why we are saying that again is that because of the nature of how Max 1 is structured, you are likely to even have a situation where if there are additional channels and there is not enough funding in terms of who is going to fund for additional channels, but secondly, suddenly in Gauteng, for instance, where you could have a Tswade TV, a Gau TV, there's a likelihood that all of these community TVs, by default, Chair, they are going to then become regional TV, which is the section 26 that we are trying to, which we have also brought to the attention of the DCDT, that because then by default they become regional TV, it means in terms of the signal distribution cost is going to be higher, but in terms of the content production cost of running that, because we have additional channels, it's going to be. So we're not in any way fighting with our colleagues who are working well because they've taken to heart some of the issues that we are raising. And our intervention has already started in terms of the revised rate card. We've implemented this as of last year. And how we've also implemented, Chairperson, is that we've been able to deal with two elements. Within the community media, both broadcast as well as community media print, there are those that are VAT paying and there are entities that are not VAT paying. So we have accommodated for that so that at least we have a revised rate card that takes into account some of those that we work with. Chair, the issue really about the media diversity is that at the heart of it is that the policy element that would be required, as we said, it will come from the DCDT. However, what we are simply saying, Chair, is that at the heart of the media in its totality is the collapse of the bedrock of how the media is run in this country and many other countries as well. which is it relies heavily on the advertising revenues, whether it's community, whether it's commercial, whether it's public. So because that funding mechanism, or at least there's been a collapse in the advertising revenues, it has collapsed, and hence we have these mechanisms that we're looking at. How do we then make sure that at least we put mechanisms in place to ensure that we have things that are, or at least we have a sustainable media in this country. The other elements, as we've said, and this is the last part, we'll continue to explain and capacitate more because we still have issues around it. I think the CEO mentioned it very well, that there are instances where the mere fact that you would have established a community media on behalf of the community, you deem that chairperson to be your own. And therefore, you would continuously buzz people to continue to elect you. Or you have those that are uninformed and they think that those that are in the running of the community media should be displaced. And then what you then have is that you have the displacements of the group by another, and then ultimately that group would not know how to actually run. But because of the nature, it's run by communities, for the communities, and by the communities. We need more of education and capacity building in terms of both the regulatory issues, the policy issues, and many others. And I do take note of some of the comments that have come from the different members. However, the support has always been is that we do the advocacy work to ensure that everybody who comes to GCIS for media buying must ensure, at least we ensure that at least we advise them to make sure that they advertise on community media. And I'm glad with the DG, the acting DG now saying that the process is very advanced in terms of ensuring that we do. We will still have those challenges because there are those that, for whatever reason, chairperson, they still don't see it fit to advertise on community media. But I think we also take the point that the issue around sustainability is not an issue that the MDDA and ourselves, but it also requires a number of bodies. Hence, we've consulted both the MDDA and ourselves are consulting, Centec are consulting, ICASA are consulting, everybody in the value chain, including the Arts and Culture Department, because the heritage funds, which we have also earmarked for, should be about how do we then access some of that fund so that we can deal with the funding of community need. And part of the other element, chairperson, that, and this is the last I promise, is that in the section 38 of the ECA that talks about the Ministerial Broadcasting Advisory Board, we would want to ensure that at least there's community media representative on those that are advising the minister around the broadcasting matter from now onwards. Chair, I think that's really would be about it. And then the last point, Chair, in 2009 and 2011, at the discretion of the meeting, there was a meeting that took place between ourselves, the GCIS, the DOC, as well as MDDA and the Competition Commission. We agreed that at least there was a decision to establish a government printing house, and then we had approached the government printing works. Unfortunately, we got a no because one of the issues that they raised with us is that even some of their printing is actually outsourced. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I'm giving you 1 minute, Mr. Nene, to just explain this thing. So this policy that you are processing, it is now going to be binding upon government to spend 30% of their budget on community media. Is the policy going to get us to that canon?
Chairperson, it's our attempt to get to both, in fact, two things: the awareness of the need for 30% and to improve the current rate of people or in government entities that are going to advertise on community media. So we have that policy that is that we're taking to cabinet. We are hoping, Chairperson, that there's going to be adherence to it. Because there's going to be adherence to it, Chairperson. We're hoping that now that it would be black and white, that the government department and our partners in the provinces are going to adhere to that, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So it's not binding, but let me say it was really nice to hear Honorable Vilakazi fighting for 30% today. Prof. Matebula?
Thanks, Chair. I'm going to ask the CEO to attend to the bulk of the questions. However, let me just deal with three aspects of some of the questions. The first one is in relation to the hijacking that has been alluded to of some NGOs about community radio stations or community media. From where we sit, the constitution of the boards, and you will have heard us allude to some of the challenges around government challenges in this project. It would make it very difficult to ask people to participate if they come from those communities that those projects are from. And it would be a second aspect of another question, which related to political interference. I'm not so sure what in
Chairperson, the prof is really breaking. We really are not able to hear him.
Thank you, Honorable Butler. And I was trying to put his attention to that as well. Prof, maybe do you want to try and close your video and see if we'll get better sound?
Yeah, Chair, am I better audible now?
Not much, but maybe let's proceed. We'll stop here again.
No. So maybe let me leave that part of the political interference because I'm not so sure that we are qualified to deal with it. Maybe the DM can deal with it. But just deal with the broadcast side in respect of the funding. I had a way being alluded to of the broadcast such as multi-choice. Let me just indicate that the funding that we get from government is lower than what we get from a broadcast fund, and specifically, they have been very generous. They have given us more than they are supposed to be giving us by allocation. Just of my audio, I'm going to ask the CEO to proceed, Chair.
Thank you, Prof. We got your point that the funding you get from government is lower than what you are receiving from the broadcasters. I think we got the point, but the sound is very bad. Can I then invite CEO?
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I'll start with the question relating to the Economic Development Fund because I think it would be easiest to cover. Chair, we have sent the Economic Development Fund report to GCIS for onward processing to the committee. The Economic Development Fund, or EDF, has concluded we only have a number of areas including bursary, so we are in the closeout phase. By the end of this year, we would have concluded that that funding. The report then covers the work that has been done. And then, Chair, just briefly then in terms of the issues that have been raised, I want to start perhaps with the training spend and what we are looking at in terms of training as well from Honorable Vilakazi. Is that, as Professor Matebula has indicated, that there is a limitation in the resources. While we do want to provide extensive training and focus on programs that might be longer instead of just the short-term programs that we implement, we are constrained by the fact that the funding comes through the Universal Access Fund or the levy, which Professor Matebula has indicated is the majority of the fund then comes from the commercial broadcasters into the MDDA. Those funds are ring-fenced to go in the main just to the commercial broadcasters. Additionally, the MDDA regulations have got a limitation in how we are allocating the fund. I think the board has been very supportive in allowing for management to deviate in certain areas where we are able to put more funds towards capacity building in some instances and towards training. But it is important to emphasize that there is a need to look at other additional revenue funding and perhaps even advocate for more funding from government to enable the agency to achieve the mandate. But at this present moment, that's the constraint in which we are operating under. I will then link the questions around sustainability as well as I won't touch much in ICASA's call for application for license operators. ICASA would be best suited, but we have met with ICASA and have discussed issues around sustainability of community media, and that there is a need for a more collaborative approach while they are going to the market to then allow for those who are able and capable to apply for licenses to apply. What we then agreed on, or at least what ICASA then emphasized was that there is a sustainability element that each applicant has to bring in, which then might answer the questions that we've had, which from where we are sitting in the report by the MDDA, is that the challenges of sustainability still remain high. There are issues that need to be provided. I would say in terms of political support, or the political element of it isn't necessarily political support more than it is understanding the need for the community and small commercial media publishers to understand their localities and the environment that they are operating from within, so that they are able to leverage or even get advertising opportunities through the IDPs at municipality level. So it's mainly really at a skills level, and we are working on providing that support. Chair, the question relating to audience measurements and that we have been speaking about it, I'm happy to say I think GCIS, Mr. Nene did indicate that we have the ABC and the BRC, and that there have been discussions on how we can best support the sector. The MDDA has supported, we've started with publishing, has supported publications who will then be able to participate in the ABC figures, and we are expecting the first report to come out in August. The work has started here. This was work or a commitment that we'd made for Q4 of the previous financial year. So there is progress that we are making. Where there are still limitations, Chair, is in the space of broadcasting, where we are still, we are engaging with the BRC and the community broadcasters, so there's alignment. But the biggest issue is the cost for that tool to produce. But the MDDA has put some funds on the side, and we will be able to report progress in when we move forward on this area. I think that's important to just highlight that, yes, there is progress that we are making. I think, Chair, the issues around government support and transformation and community media, GCIS covered a lot, but safe to say that there is a need for supporting community media through advertising, not just for government, but also for the private sector. And we are hopeful that now that we are making progress with the information that provides the sector with the credibility in the numbers and the distribution, they will be able to unlock those opportunities. And that will speak into the areas of sustainability, which we are looking to build. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, CEO. Just the Syntech platform, and then we'll hand over to the Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. On the Syntech platform, the MDDA is presently collaborating with Syntech. We are able to support 22 broadcasters each year. We will start with the 22 broadcasters, but the approach is for us to, in the next 5 years, digitalize 100 community radio stations across the country, or broadcasters across the country. This would mean that they are broadcasting on the Free Vision platform that Centec has, and they are able to, once they have built the audiences, are able to share revenue with Centec. So it becomes also another platform and opportunity for alternative revenue. I think in this instance, we have made a lot of progress. The board had supported the partnership that we are embarking on. Also with the support of GCIS, we were able to engage DCDT. So resources have been made available, and we are working on the implementation. While there are stations that are presently on the Free Vision platform, those were at a pilot phase. We are now starting with the actual implementation to then provide to support the digitalization of community media.
Thank you. Thank you very much, CEO. Honorable DM, you have the last 5 minutes just to respond. I think there are quite a few areas as well that spoke to issues of political interference and all sorts of things. If you could cover those in your responses as well. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me indicate, Chair, that I'm of a view that is, of course, a view that some may disagree with, that we are turning the tide on the support for community and small commercial media. Yesterday, we commenced with our roadshows, these workshops that are aimed at capacitating community media on issues that are related to governance and issues that are related to information on funding that is available, but also a discussion about sustainability. And the reason why we elected to go on these roadshows was to solicit their views and the views of the sector on the best methods to apply to ensure sustainability of the sector, and to draw lessons and experiences from community media practitioners. And I can guarantee you that the issues that have surfaced, including issues around governance, have also been articulated by community media practitioners in detail. The issues of alternative revenue streams have also been raised in detail in our ensuing discussions. And that is why, Honorable Vilakazi, we decided that by end of the financial year, we will operationalize the scheme. We would have had a sufficient consultation with the sector, including the portfolio committee, which is an important body that we may want to consult on how best we can set up the scheme that is aimed at ensuring that there is sustainability of the community media sector. And that is why we also had said that there must be discussions with ICASA to hold all future licenses until such time that we are able to do a proper analysis through the index that Mr. Nene spoke about, to be able to make a determination as to whether we have reached diversity and development of the community media landscape. And so these are some of the important strides we're making. I'm happy that Ms. Mnukwa, in her response, indicates that there is ongoing sufficient work on funding for government communication through the discussions that were held yesterday at FOST. We hope that the cabinet committees in the next few weeks will have to be seized with the report. And you asked the chair as to whether the policy will be binding. Cabinet decisions in their own nature are binding. It is the responsibility of cabinet to coordinate policies, and they are binding to all spheres of government. But we intend, Chairperson, through this roadshows to consult with the provincial executive councils of the various provinces to illustrate the need for government to put its money where its mouth is. You yourself would know that we presented international best practices on funding sources for community broadcasters. France, Ireland, Netherlands, which hosted the Jawulani Freedom of the Airways Conference, New Zealand, UK, Australia, and Mali. What is common about all these countries is that funding for community media comes from government. You know that MDDA is funded through the money that is funds that are appropriated from the fiscus, not less than 40 million that we appropriate from the fiscus funds the work of MDDA, and levies from the Universal Service Access Fund, levied from broadcasters, but also potential donors contribute to this funding. So the bigger conversation should be about the funding model. And I'm also responding to the comments raised by the whip when he indicated the fact that we have not demonstrated that we want more funding for community broadcasting or for community and social, and small commercial media. So the document that will be soon seized with cabinet committees, inter alia, intends to model funding around and support around community and small commercial broadcasters and print media. We therefore are hopeful that by the 31st of March 2026, we would have been able to launch a scheme. That scheme will herald a new era in the community media space, in the sense that in the first instance, it will provide much more varied ways of funding community media through government and through collaborations. It will also deal with or venture to address issues of signal distribution fees. And I must indicate that we have no intention of engaging Centec to to disabuse itself from collecting these fees. In fact, we want Centec to continue to do its work, but we want to find better ways that do not necessarily burden this community and small commercial media that generate no or less income. We are also going to bring a report to demonstrate the type of community radio stations primarily that we've been able to fund, to demonstrate that Zibonele, Budumeri FM in Mamusa, where I hail from, which was funded long before I became a deputy minister here, are community radio stations that are located in our communities, in rural and in black township. And this is to demonstrate that the intention is to assist all community media, and there's no sense that we shun those that are seen to be managed by Africans, black people in particular. So these are some of the reports that I think you should be seized with. We will, in the next month, launch some of the studios where we've donated equipment, and we would want to invite members of the portfolio committee to join us in this effort, so that we demonstrate that MDDA is hard at work to support the community and small commercial media. So I think the important thing here to stress is the fact that the cabinet will be seized with the funding model that we're proposing, and we are confident that its decision will be binding. But as I said, we will also engage different spheres of government. I even have requested that MDDA should also engage SALGA so that we demonstrate to local government our commitment as national government to support community and small commercial, but also impress upon them the need to provide similar support to community and small commercial media. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you very much, DM. Let me thank the team as a whole for those inputs that you have made. You have made quite a number of commitments, including the figures from the ABC coming out in August, the comment on the finalization. What is this now? I can't see my notes, but I think it's been taken down 31st of March 2026. And I think we'll be tracking that with keen interest. I don't think we got a timeline on the policy, but we also look forward to the completion of that process as well, which, as you have said, is quite at an advanced stage. The reports that you speak about, DM, we also look forward to receiving those, and I will ask that the Secretariat follows up. Once again, sincere appreciation. You are welcome to stay in the meeting, or you are released. It is your preference. But now I want to welcome the Film and Publication Board, which is to speak to us on the regulation of video on demand as well as online streaming. I'm not sure. I've seen the chairperson of the board of FPB is present in the room, but then is the leadership from the department here to introduce the item? Who is here from the department?
Good morning, Chair. I'm hoping I'm visible. I'm not sure if the department is here. I think it's only the entity that is here. And thank you for the opportunity. Good morning to yourself and the honorable members. Chair, the chairperson is on call.
Awumeke. Meeting yamle, awuzithatheli nje awumeke. Can I just check with the Secretariat? You indicated an apology from the Minister. What happened to the Deputy Minister and the Director General?
Good day, Chairperson. We did not receive an apology from the Deputy Minister. We do know that there is a member, I'm just trying to find it. Ms. Nonsisi is online. Thank you, from the department.
Nosisi, can you give some light to this matter?
Morning, Chairperson, and morning, honorable members. My name is Nosisi Madlanga from the department. I'm responsible. Apologies, Chairperson.
Can I ask you put your video on, ma'am?
Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you so much. Not sure whether you're able to see me.
Nope, it's just stuck there. I can't see you.
Okay. I'm not sure, but it's on from my side.
Okay, proceed, Ms. Madlanga.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I was saying that it's not from the department. The DG is out of the country, and I've been asked to come and support FPB from the department side. I'm responsible for the oversight of FPB from the department side, also acting as the DGG Media and Content. Thank you. I think we can hand over to the chairperson of the FPB to do the presentation as required. Thank you.
Thank you. You and Mr. Gyali, I need to take you on a crash course on the meeting. We decide when we hand over to. Could I ask the Secretariat to write to the department, please? I think in the last meeting, Honorable Vilakazi, if I'm not mistaken, would have raised the issue of the absence of the Director General. And while Ms. Matlanga says that the DG is overseas, at the very least, we expect the courtesy of being notified when they are not going to be attending these meetings and the reason why they choose not to attend the meetings. Mr. Kiali, you were saying you have an apology for Ms. Mkosi?
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Let me apologize for crashing in terms of the meeting itself. Yes, indeed, Chairperson. Maybe by way of introductions, I'm the Deputy Chairperson of the Film and Publication Board, Professor Siyasanga Mhlangabezi-Tyali, and I'm standing in for the Chairperson, Ms. Zama Mkosi, who is on call. However, she is having connection challenges that have then caused a bit of instability with regards to her connection. And so I'm coming in for her as a Deputy Chairperson. And then maybe Chairperson, Honorable Chairperson, by way of brief opening remarks, I should indicate that the FP Amendment Act has realized that the content has moved from physical to the online space. And thus the FPB, which is the entity, needed to reposition itself in relation to these developments in the consumption and the tech space. Chair, this has also meant that the FPB needed to regulate commercial online distributors. And essentially, these include, your giant VODs such as your Netflix, your Disney Plus, Amazon, and other major companies in relation to the space. And Chair, the Act is also quite clear that the broadcasters regulated by ICASA are exempted from submitting their content to the entity that is the FPB for classification purposes. And lastly, Chair, as an entity, we also acknowledge that there are loopholes in the current legislative environment where we operate, and we are hopeful that the draft white paper on audio and visual as undertaken by the department, that is the DCDT, will assist in terms of the loopholes that we have identified in relation to our environment. And so having said that, Chair, let me then hand over to the team as led by our acting CEO to then take the committee to the presentation that we have developed, and then we'll come back then for the Q&A. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chair, and also congratulations on your recently accepted paper. We hope that you will share it with the committee. We would love to read it on political communications that you've completed. CEO, if I can invite you, Acting CEO.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Honorable Chair, members, DM, leadership of other entities and colleagues. Chair, I must just apologize that I'm on the road and I'm on 15%, and if this dies on me, my colleague is able to take over, but hopefully I should then be able to go through the presentation. And thanks, Deputy Chair, for setting the scene. So the presentation really, Chair, is to just give an update and to provide clarity to the Portfolio Committee on the role the FPB plays in regulating VODs of broadcasters versus those of online streamers. And we'll just give background to that. I will go through these items, but the core of the discussion really it's on item 3 and item 4, because that's really where the meat of the discussion is. The first slide, it's just to set the scene of the FPB mandate. I'm not really going to go through that, except to say that we are A creature of stature were established through the Films and Publications Act of 1996, which recently been amended in 2019. So what then is the regulatory requirements from an FPB point of view? So Section 18.1 is very clear that any person who distributes or broadcasts or exhibits any film or game within the borders of the Republic, they shall, in the prescribed manner, register with the FPB for them to be able to exhibit or distribute such content, and they shall submit for examination and classification that content for it to be classified in terms of the age rating and then also in terms of the consumer advice. So this is very clear. There's no gray area in terms of what then is the requirement from a regulatory point of view. Then the Amendment Act that came into effect in 2020, when we started to operationalize it, realized, as Prof was saying, that content has now moved into the online space. So what then it then sets to do was to regulate the online distribution of films and games, also then to provide for the exemptions in terms of the distribution of films and games, and essentially just positioning the FPB that you are now regulating the online space as now content has now moved. Definitions, I'm not going to go through it. Then when we come into the crux of the matter on video on demand or commercial online distributors, Section 18C of the Act says that on application and payment of prescribed fees, commercial online distributors can classify content on their own, but subject to certain conditions. They have to classify that content according to our classification guidelines, and they need to let us know if in case there's XX or X18 content in their platforms. Then we still although there's an agreement that will be in place between the FPB and the online distributor, the board then needs to then provide training to those distributors in line with the classification guidelines to ensuring that they can be able to deliver or classify content according to our guidelines. And then the commercial online distributor shall, on demand by the FPB, make available their catalog or their content for us to audit and make sure that indeed they have been classified according to our guidelines. And we may suspend such a permit or such an agreement if they are not abiding by the conditions of that agreement, or in case FPB after auditing realizes that indeed they are not abiding to our
Deputy Chair, what must happen now?
Thank you so much, Chairperson. We have the executive responsible for regulation, who has been briefed by the CEO to then take over should their battery life have died. Advocate Makosazana, are you on call? And apologies once again, Chairperson, for this the challenges that we're facing.
Okay, Advocate Makosazana, you may proceed. There is 11 minutes left of the presentation. Please proceed.
Good morning, Chair. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Sisi, but we can't see you.
I've switched on my camera. Can you see the presentation?
I cannot see the presentation. I'm not sure if other members can see the presentation.
Can you see the presentation now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of our role as the FPB, then Section 18C then gave us that responsibility of ensuring that we co-regulate, realizing that when you look at the manner in which these online commercial distributors are performing, they have a lot of content. So they have that responsibility of self-classifying. And in terms of their requirement, they are required to ensure that they register with the FPB. Then we enter into the online distribution agreement. So in terms of the agreement, they are required to ensure that they comply with our classification guideline. So that is the core, because they are based on outside South Africa, then it means the values of SA has to be preserved. So that is the key to our classification guideline. And on a quarterly basis, as part of ensuring their compliance, then we do a sampling to check that they are still complying with the manner in which they are required to classify. And over and above that, we do provide training for them. So in this area, these are some of the registered distributors. This is not the entire list. We have your Netflix, your Showmax, your Amazon, your Disney. These are some of the online distributors that we have in the Republic. As the chair will know that as part of the amended act, we were given the responsibility to ensure that we remain self-sustainable. So as part of the self-sustainability, you can see that the online license fees at the end is playing a key role in ensuring that we add more revenue over and above the government funding. And the unaudited fees for the year just ended, it's about 18 million that we received from online commercial distributors. So when it comes to the issue of broadcasters, the Act is saying on their normal broadcasting, they are not required to submit their content and register with the FPB. Then the gap came during the amendment because content has now moved online, and the understanding is that ICASA is responsible for regulating the traditional broadcast. And the question that was before us is, when it comes to the online content that is now shifted online and can be available on demand, who is responsible for regulating that? So I hope the committee is aware that there is this matter, especially this section, is subject to a litigation. NAB has taken the FPB to court in this area, and we are the first respondent, and the department is the second respondent on this matter, on whether this specific exemption, because our understanding is, as per I have alluded previously, that for the traditional broadcasting, they are not really required to come and register and classify according to FPB requirement. However, when the content moves online, then who is the regulator? However, Chair, this is a matter that is before the courts, but also as part of ensuring that we don't have protracted discussions that are not ending, we have really resorted to see whether is there a way that we can resolve this matter differently and look at the other alternative dispute resolution mechanism. And we are hoping that next time when we come to the committee, we would have been here giving you a completely different results in terms of how we've resolved to resolve this matter. The challenge is now when it comes to how we're regulating a video on demand, it still continues to be the issue of distributors that are based outside the Republic, who will continue to indicate that we are just making our content available in SA. However, we're not bound by your rules and regulation. We still have some. You will recall previously we would have reported about one which has since complied, but we still have some of those that are still indicating that we're not based in SA. And some of them will say we are not based in SA. It was not our intention really to make our content available in South Africa because SA is not our market. Then they will stop distributing. The issue of interpretation of the legislation is still an issue I've alluded to, and this applies also to issue of what is a video. When you look at it, looking at the videos that are being distributed by non-commercial online distributors. Those are just ordinary citizens like me and you who are posting content on various social media platforms. And the question is this a video or a film within the definition of the Films and Publications Act? So that is where the gaps are. Hence, as a regulator, we're not really regulating that content. But when you look at the amount of content that is being distributed on the various social media platforms, various videos that are harmful, it's an issue that we are working with DCDT to ensure that the Act is properly enhanced with provision, and taking into account also the work that they are doing on the audiovisual white paper, which also have the online safety issues on it. So we continue to engage with them. The issue of human resource, it's still a challenge for us to implement the extended mandate, and just the public perception about our independence as the FPB, because some of the industry players, they believe that because we are issuing our classification guideline in consultation with the minister, so we are not as independent as other Chapter 9 regulators, and they really have some fear that we are there just to not enable them to express themselves freely. But we continue to engage with the industry to ensure that our role and mandate here is properly clarified. And the auditing of online distributors, we continue to do the work to ensure that they remain compliant. And we also do the normal compliance monitoring. We have a system that is doing platform monitoring to ensure that the activities that are happening online are at least detected and the team work on it. Also, the online distributors have already indicated on this that we do check their work to ensure that they are compliant, and we continue to provide training on our classification guideline to ensure that the age rating that is being given is in line with our Act. So that is all from our side, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Advocate Makhosazana. Colleagues, that's the presentation from the FPB relating to the regulation of video on demand services and the online streaming services. I think as indicated, the FPB Act had been amended to include online as a platform instead of just videos that are found in video stores and films that play on television. My understanding of the role of the FPB is to look at this content and classify it in the main. And I'm not sure how far the regulatory responsibility goes if it is just around a classification of issues, and whether there's any other assessment made on content. I'm going to open up to the members to discuss this, but I think one of the reasons why it was important that we have a bit of a discussion around this is obviously linked to the many challenges that we've got around the policy and the regulatory framework. The advocate, when she's speaking, she speaks to the regulation of platforms. But my understanding is that these platforms, I think it was Honorable Shongwe in one meeting that was decrying the presence, for example, of pornographic material on various other platforms which are not commercial distributors, but who do end up having the same functions like Twitter, that you will be scrolling on your feed. Next thing, you have a porn thing coming up, child sexual abuse material. And I do want to know what is being done in that regard. It may not fit perfectly into your framework of harmful and prohibited content because of the platform, and I would just be keen to hear your views. And similarly, any work that has been done by the FPB around international comparisons. We've been advocate in office for almost a year now, and this is one of the very first issues that we had raised when we came into office. So what are you learning from your counterparts across the world? Where is the move seemingly going to? Because it may be that even though the Act has just been recently amended, it still doesn't go far enough to mitigate against some of these online harms. So I would wish to just get your view and where the thinking is of the FPB in that regard. Honorable members, can I take hands for engagement with the FPB? I don't see a single hand. This will be the very, very first time in my entire life that this committee has nothing to say. Thank you, Honorable Vilakazi. I am going to be like those user-generating people who go on live and say, I'll wait until we get to 30 people. Thank you, Honorable Subrati. Honorable Vilakazi, you'll be followed by Honorable Subrati.
Chair, just to note that I had intended to hold myself this time and just give the opportunity to others. But since you insisted that we speak, I will gladly take up the opportunity. But good morning to everybody on the platform once more. And I think, Chair, you alluded to some of the Chair, anybody?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. May I just, Chair, can you, may I ask Honorable Subrati to go? I'm just going to switch devices because on my side it says my connection is unstable.
Thank you.
Could I speak after Subrati?
Thank you. Honorable Subrati.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, may I please request that I remain, keep my video off? I have moved location and I think members have expressed concern over the shirt that I'm wearing. Chairperson, let me welcome this presentation and also echo your sentiment that I think from the portfolios that we have oversight of, in particular to myself, this is one of the most important portfolios because I think it's charged with this responsibility of navigating and assessing the kind of content particularly our young children will consume. And given the fact that we are in a highly digitized environment, the need for greater policing is crucially important now. Let me also welcome the investment that had taken place, and as we learned in the last portfolio committee when FPB appeared before us, of almost 4 million rands into into software, and I understand they've invested that into internet online monitoring equipment. We did hear in their last appearances that there was a challenge in terms of capacity, that how can they monitor all this online content, and I'm given to understand that this investment in IT will assist them. Chairperson, maybe let me begin by asking the question surrounding pornography. And do porn sites, are they required to register with the Film and Publications Board? And if so, is there any special way that they are dealt with? The second question is with regards to young people being able to access porn sites. And the most that they would ask is that, are you 18? And you can click on, yes, I'm 18, and you have exposure to all these websites, porn sites. Given this reality, how is the FPB dealing with this against the backdrop that we are seized with this responsibility of ensuring our children are not exposed? And maybe given link to that is, I suppose, what type of media outreach is taking place to create awareness about the easy accessibility of these websites to our children. And note also, Chairperson, my beginning sentiment focused on the children because I think that is where the real challenge lies. Having said that, I'd like to understand and also appreciating in the presentations that a significant revenue stream comes from online monitoring, licensing, fees, etc. What is how much of the these online streamers are not regulated or not caught in the net? It presents two opportunities. One is an opportunity for revenue, and two is obviously it then begs the question, if they are not captured, it also means that they're unregulated, and therefore that unregulated content is on our internet. Maybe let me also speak about taking the current matters highlighted in this presentation. What is the mandate of the FPB regarding the regulation of video on demand services as outlined by the Present Publication Amendment Act of 2019? And how does this mandate find expression in the day-to-day working of the Films and Publication Board? And following up from that, maybe how does the FPB differentiate between commercial online distributors and non-commercial online distributors? And what are their respective requirements? The further question, Chairperson, would be what are the key conditions that the commercial online distributors must meet to obtain self-classification permit from FPB? And maybe finally, Chairperson, how does the FPB ensure that self-classified content by online distributors aligns with its classification guidelines? And what measures are in place for auditing compliance? And lastly, Chairperson, maybe I would just like to know what is the level of awareness that FPB creates for both their current regulated and those that wish to be regulated. What type of information are we making available on our platforms to give an indication that this is how online content will be regulated in South Africa? Thank you so much, Chairperson. If there is still an opportunity, I will still come back if there is an opportunity. Thank you so much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Subrathi. Have we lost Honorable Vilakazi?
I hope I'm back, Chair. I did get disconnected for a bit.
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you, Honorable Vilakazi.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I was saying that, as you said, Chair, it does look like there's quite a lot of uncertainty and maybe lack of clarity just around how FPB carries out its mandate due to the number of platforms, a number of ways in which content can be distributed, particularly in the online space. And of course, the fact that our legislation is moving at a snail's pace and not able to keep up with development. But I thought I'd ask a few questions, and some of these were just my thoughts as the presentation was unfolding. The first is, how effective is monitoring of the self-classification by content distributors? I noted that it happens quarterly. And how does FPB monitor this effectiveness? And how does FPB know for certain about its effectiveness in monitoring? And then what proportion of video on demand platforms operating in South Africa are currently registered with the FPB? And I remember we've had sort of a discussion around this, and I thought I'd ask again because we are looking at online content this meeting, but how is compliance being monitored for curated content on platforms like Netflix, YouTube, and TikTok? I also wondered, just given the discrepancy in regulatory treatment between broadcasters and video on demand platforms, how is FPB addressing fairness in regulation to avoid challenges from operators complaining of unfair treatment. And then there was talk about proposed digital content regulation partnerships with global platforms. Can you just expand on these partnerships, please? What are they? And how is FPB preparing for content moderation challenges posed by generative AI and deepfakes? How are we preparing to manage these? And finally, what role can this committee play in supporting the FPP to implement countermeasures effectively, especially regarding issues of budget and capacity and technical expertise? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Vilakazi. I had a question which I have since forgotten now. But yeah, maybe if we've got time and I remember, I'll come back. But let me ask you to deal with these questions that have been posed. And also, if you could just expand on the challenges that the exemption in terms of Section 18.6 poses to the FPB and you undertaking your work. Over to you, Prof. Kyali.
Thank you so much, Chair, for the question posed. And I must say that we've taken notice of the request to make the paper available. We shall certainly do so. And also to indicate that there is also a working paper, which is essentially dealing with the subject matters that we are discussing today in relation to regulation gaps and the space that we work with, particularly latest issues such as live streaming on VODs, which is obviously a gap that we've noticed in relation to the Amendment Act. There's a few that I will then take, Chairperson, and then I will then hand over to Advocate Makosazana Lindhorst, who luckily is in charge of the regulatory issues, and I think that she should be able to then to respond to the issues. Chair, you raised quite a number of issues around the global shifts and the directions that are unfolding and where we are at and what we are trying to do in terms of that space with regards to global shift in so much as content classification and regulatory processes are unfolding. And perhaps, Chair, I should indicate by one that the FPB is in a very good space in so much as partnerships are concerned. We are a member of INHOPE and the Global Regulators Forum. And in some of these, we actually have board positions where we are able to influence policy and the direction of the spaces that we are actually using to try and drive policy around that. And Chair, these then have allowed us to have that global footprint that you were alluding to and try to influence the direction. But also importantly, in one of these, I think at some point, we were the only African country who was sitting in one of these global regulators forum. And so it was quite important that we are there as it allowed the continent itself to have an access to the conversation around VODs and online content consumption. And some of the questions that have then been raised, I think by Honorable Subrathi, in relation to the mandate of the entity itself and what we are doing around that in terms of child education, as well as issues that yourself you have raised around adult content that would appear in platforms such as social media platforms. I must indicate that with regards to the FPB, we can issue takedown notices whenever we have been made aware of material that is available on some of these platforms. And our processes rely on complaints being raised so that we are then able to then issue and be engaged with these platforms. And luckily, most of these platforms, we actually regulate them. And so we are in touch and have good working relations with some of the global platforms themselves. I'll allow the advocate to raise issues in so much as some of the education initiatives that we are doing around child sexual abuse material and the other questions that have then been raised by Honorable Advocate Lindost.
Thanks, Chair. So when it comes to the effectiveness of the commercial online distributors, we are saying at this stage we are effective because we are seeing compliance. In instances, it's very few instances where we'll find out that maybe a movie was not properly classified. And in that instance, then they will be required to do the training. But generally, we are seeing compliance. And in terms of monitoring, yes, we are doing that quarterly. I think the committee will have to realize that we are using a sampling portion because we cannot review everything because it will mean we are defeating the purpose of self-classification. This is part of the regulatory model where we are realizing that as a regulator, we have limited resources because to self-classify, we will need classifiers and the classification to be done. So for the self-classified, it's another form of the regulatory approach where we require the platforms themselves to bear the cost. So we do that portion of sampling and we can say that is effective. In terms of ensuring fairness, they are all subjected to the same rules and condition. The condition is that you have to enter into a negotiation with us, then you are issued with the permit. The permit stipulates the requirement, and the large chunk of the condition is that you have to ensure that the classification is in line with the FPB classification guideline, and secondly, you have to use the FPB classification. So that is the key requirement, and you have to be a heuristic person, that a company that has a registration. So those are the most key requirement, because at the core of this, it's about ensuring that you comply with the classification guideline of the FPB. Then when it comes to what is the difference between commercial and non-commercial, the Act is indicating that commercial online distributors are those who are running their business for profit. So those will be the commercial online distributors, and non-commercial distributors are people who are distributing not for profit. And in this instance is referring to ordinary South Africans that are distributing their content either through TikTok or any other forms of social media. And the regulatory gap that we have, Chair, as I allude to some of the intervention that we really require from this committee, it's the issue of ensuring that the Films and Publications Act, we have more provisions, because as is, those are the gaps, because that content, self-generated user content, is not considered to be commercial, and therefore we not have the authority to regulate. Safe to say, as Prof was indicating, that we can only instruct the platforms to remove those harmful content, and where there's a complaint, then we can then investigate. In terms of the proportion of registered online commercial distributors, we have about 14. But currently, there's also about 14 that we are engaging with that are not registered. And the meaning of that, yes, they are not compliant. But in terms of our regulatory process, we have to bring the non-compliance to your attention, and thereafter we engage. If that non-compliance still persists, then we'll have to take you to the enforcement committee. And some of those are offering the pornographic material. I think we are all aware that pornography, it's not an offense in the Republic. However, its distribution has to be restricted. And what we have seen, the team is currently looking at all this side to check in terms of the measures that are there in ensuring that children are not being able to access those sites. So as part of the regulatory measure, we will be issuing a guideline on age verification and age assurance. So after we have finalized the assessment of the available pornographic material so that we have first-hand evidence, we know what the problem is, and we are able to provide the guidelines that seeks really to limit the exposure of children to pornographic material. And one of the things that we are currently working on around the issues of AI content, the research team is working on a research on the impact of technology to online harms and also the mandate of the FPB. So that part of the work is assisting us in ensuring that we make informed inputs to the department when it comes to the changes that we want to see in the legislation. We are part of the global online safety regulators, and the issue of AI content that causes harm is also part of the discussion. So as part of us sitting in those forums, it really is assisting us in ensuring that we have a better way of regulating. On the issue of education and awareness, we are doing education and awareness. We have a dedicated team of the advocacy team that goes to schools, educate parents, members of the public, and focusing specifically on the online harms and how parents should be aware of the issues of online grooming and the risks that their children can be exposed to. We are also working closely with all the platforms that, whilst there are some limitation in terms of explicit provisions in some of the work that we do, but we work closely with them in doing education and awareness, and also how we can fast track our request for takedowns. So we continue to work closely with the platforms. Then when it comes to the issues of awareness in terms of the online distributors, how do we ensure that they are all informed? We have what we call compliance seminars, where we give an update on the regulatory matters, but also take them step by step in terms of the basics, reminding them the requirements for compliance and the consequences for non-compliance. So that is the work that we do as a regulator also quarterly, so that we ensure that there is compliance with the Act. So yeah, I think I've alluded to the porn site. They are required to register with the FPB. So I think I've touched on all the issues, Chair. But on the last one, the issue of the legislation, it's really a problem for the FPB, because if we don't have teeth, then it becomes very difficult for us to bite. But at the core, it's not really about biting, it's about protecting children and ordinary South Africans from the harmful content. So the current Act is really not assisting us in terms of being effective as a regulator. That is the big area where we really require the intervention of the committee. The issue of the budget, you will recall, Chair, we came in October last year where we were giving update in terms of where we are with implementing the amended Act. And it was clear from the presentation of our CFO that since we had a new mandate which came into effect in March 2022, the budget still remained the same. If it's possible for this committee to really have an engagement with the Committee on Finance, that will be critical, because our budget hasn't changed, but the scope has extended, but the budget remains the same. Whilst we do realize that, yes, we have to use technology. Technology requires money. We also need human resource. Those are the two key challenges that we really requires the intervention of this committee. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Advocate. I may have missed your response to the question on digital content regulation, or is it the issues that the Prof was talking about in terms of international partnerships, or is there something specific in the country? We remember that you had a conversation at one point about a regulator of the future, bringing together the information regulator, yourselves, ICASA, and so forth. Is there any movement that's taking us anywhere in that regard?
Yes, we've established that committee, which is consisting of the information regulator, the FPB, and ICASA.ZNA. We are moving, that committee is moving, they will be finalizing their work plan. And as part of the responsibility, it's about ensuring that the digital platform is properly regulated. And where there are matters of mutual interest, where there are gray areas, like the issue in question around regulation of broadcasting, those are some of the key priorities that will be part of that committee. That committee is effective and running, Chair.
Thank you very much. We've got a few minutes, so Honorable Subrathi, I will indulge you on your request for a follow-up. Honorable Subrathi? Okay, while Honorable Subrathi is still gathering himself, I've remembered my question, and maybe I need to direct it to Sisnosisi. The date today is the 3rd of June. We were promised in February that on the 31st of May, we would receive the draft of the audio and audiovisual policy. I think it goes without saying, even though it's been said numerous times in this meeting already, you are holding back the industry, you are holding back the country. Can you give us an update on the audio and audiovisual services policy that we expected last week?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The audio and audiovisual white paper is in the process of being gazetted for public comments. It's in the internal processes for minister's signature, but it will be public or gazetted for public comments. I think it will be before the end of June, definitely before the end of June. Thank you.
So just to be sure that we don't misinterpret you, especially since you are designated by what is now holding up the audit and audiovisual policy is the minister's signature. All other internal processes have been complied with. Is that an accurate representation of what you were saying?
It has been finalized for public comments. But yeah, the Gazette itself is in the process of being signed by the minister for public comments. I think that's the correct representation. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honorable Subrathi? I doubt that Honorable Subrathi is still with us. And given that there are no other hands, I will assume that we have exhausted this matter, except to say that, colleagues, thank you very much for that update. We really look forward to the work that you're doing on the regulatory gaps, because there's many of them, and I think it's obvious for anybody to see. We have spoken about a need, and I try to tiptoe around this subject because I don't want to give to you things that don't belong there, and that's why we appreciate that regulatory forum that we have. But the print media, the broadcast media, undertook a similar exercise as yourselves when they broadened their scope to include online. Now, I understand that the mandates are very different, but I think there has to be a conversation about user-generated content. There has to be a conversation about podcasts as well, in particular. Now, as you do your work, we would really appreciate a thinking that begins to come up with a position around those. Okay, I've lost my train of thought when I saw the hand of Honorable Shongwe. Honorable Shongwe, do you want to come in?
Yes, thank you. Greetings, Chair. I've been struggling with network. Most of the presentations I didn't get. But when it comes to the last part of EFPB, they've answered certain questions that I've asked before, but I just need clarity. In terms of Twitter, the X platform, Chair. Cool shares. I told you last, the access to porn is too much and it's very easy. And I'm not clear on their answer when they say they are working on certain things to cover or protect our children. But I need, I think, a specific answer. Have they approached such platforms as X and asked them to remove such pornography content that is easily accessible? Because if we rely on the fact that when you register on your phone, you put your age there, I don't think that's the best measures that we can use. So can they kindly clarify that for me, if possible? Sure, thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Shonga. Honorable Subrathi?
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, let me just pick up from where Honorable Shongwe left off, maybe to ask the question, because clearly we are seized with the issue of child pornography, and I know that they indicated that it's allowed. I mean, pornography is allowed in our country, but I think the focus is on young minds. Maybe the question would be what outreach is being done in schools, continuous effort is being done in schools to educate our children, because that's where you're really going to catch the minds. And I suppose you also have to balance it between arousing curiosity. But I think every child now who has a device is vulnerable. So I think maybe the question would be fair to say that what efforts are being done at the grassroots level to educate our children and our parents about accessing these types of pornographic sites. And two more questions, maybe. Just two more questions. Why are the broadcasters exempt from FPB classification requirements under Section 18(6) of the FB Act? And what are the legal challenges has this exemption posed? And lastly, Chairperson, is what countermeasure has the FPB implemented or proposed to tackle the prohibited and harmful content on social media platforms operated by non-commercial online distributors? And as a report to the PC, what is the progress on the implementation of AI in the regulation of harmful online content? Thank you so much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, colleagues. I think one thing you'll get through, Prof, is that we may be asking the same thing over and over again because we do see that there's a problem, and maybe how you can also help us as you respond to that is be very direct, for example, on the issue of Section 18(6). I understand that there's a legal case there. You are protected in this house. So what exactly is the problem? I think I had also asked, why that exemption was necessary. So how is it manifesting itself? And please do believe that we are listening, but I think it's not coming through very much there. In addition to the questions around the adult content and the sexual abuse material, online bullying and gender-based violence through digital platforms, it probably falls outside of your scope. But are you discussing it in partnership with either the other regulators? Like, we need solutions, and I think they're not really coming through. And if they don't exist, then what is to be done? Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. I'll speak to some of them, but I think that it may be important for the members of the committee to sort of like get granular information with regards to some of the practical steps that we are taking to handle some of these issues. Particularly, I think the question that has been raised by Honorable Shongwe in relation to the practical steps that we have taken in the past in relation to take down notices whenever inappropriate content has been, or we've been made aware in relation to that. I'd like to speak a bit in relation to a question of exception in relation to broadcasters, and why our current act it makes an exception in relation to broadcasters and those that are then being regulated by ICASA chairperson. And maybe to give a bit of a historical context here, we would know that leading up to the democracy, there was then a lot of conversation around media policy in South Africa and in which ways it should unfold. Also taking into consideration the question of the Constitution, and I think it's Section 16 of the Constitution, which then guarantees the question of media freedom. And so it was then always important to draft and contextualize issues of regulation in such a way that then the question of media freedom is enshrined, but also to then separate platforms and areas of responsibility, which is then why the context of the FPB arose through the 1996 Act. And then the question of broadcasting came through around the Broadcasting Act of 1999. And so our space then largely falls on the question of films, certain publication, and I think that it's quite important that we outline that phrase of certain publications, because you'd realize that there is self-regulation that takes into context the print media, and why then the emphasis was on certain publications. And then lastly, then the question of games. And so it had been quite important, Chairperson, that we ensure and in ways that we act as a country, and also taking into consideration our history and what had happened around issues of media freedom pre-1994, that then there becomes areas of separation. Hence, the FPB then really does not regulate those areas of responsibility that fall within the Press Council of South Africa, but also within ICASA as the regulator of broadcasting material. So I think that history and the context in which our regulations and laws were drawn, taken into consideration, is quite important. And then secondly, there's the issue around then the takedown notices. And then the last question that you had raised, Chairperson, I would like to indicate that I think that as we are thinking about ways in which we deal with the matters of regulatory gaps and legislative gaps in how we operate, that perhaps it would be important to not only partner with the industry in so much as the regulatory forum that we have created, but also have the higher education universities that are working in the context of regulation, media, and so forth, because there's a lot of conversations that are currently unfolding. And I would perhaps like to outline it to the committee that form of partnership is another partnership that it might be worthwhile to think about and see ways in which we can drive the conversation of closing the regulatory and legislative gaps that we are identifying in terms of the work that we are doing. I do understand, Chairperson, also that the CEO might be back on his cell phone, and so he might also be able to then respond to some of the issues that I've left out. Through you, then, Chairperson, may I ask for the two colleagues to try and assist? Thank you.
Thank you very much, CEO.
Thank you, Deputy Chair, and once again, apologies, Honorable Chair and members. So on question from Honorable Shongwe, I think quite clearly is that Honorable Shongwe, what the Amendment Act made provisions for is for the establishment of the Enforcement Committee, and members of the public, when they're picking up some of this prohibited and harmful content, can lodge complaints with us, and the Enforcement Committee then is ready to deal with such. And I think this is an extra measure over and above what Prof had already said in terms of the takedown notices, because indeed, in cases where we are picking up harmful content online, we are able then to work very closely with the platforms to issue takedown notices. And indeed, we have engaged X, we have engaged TikTok, we have engaged most of the major platforms, and they have taken down some of the content that we have picked up. But I think what we want to encourage is for the public to, as and when they're picking up this harmful content, please lodge complaints with us. Our enforcement committee, chaired by a retired judge, is capable and is ready to deal with such cases. So I think that's just what I wanted to talk on. And Chair, you talked about issues of online bullying and what we are calling gender-based violence facilitated by technology, although it may not sit squarely with us, but I think through our partnerships and the work that we are doing, I think Prof also touched on the issues that we are a member of a global online safety regulators network. So we are sharing lessons on how other countries are dealing with this, because like we're saying, is not just one issue that's going to be sorted by one regulator. Hence, then the need for us to come up with, to work closely with other sort of the regulators like-minded on how best can we deal, because the online space is a huge space, and FPB can only address a certain part of that online space. But the other regulators, for example, information regulator, as it relates to privacy and personal information, can also come in. So yes, we are really partnering with the rest of the other colleagues. Maybe then, Advocate, you can come on the rest of the questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. On the issue of user-generated content, our proposal to the department, but also our research team and the regulatory team, has looked at various legislation like your Digital Services Act, your eSafety Act from Australia, so that we have enough provisions to enable us to operate better as the FPB. And these are the proposals that we are taking to the department. I think the Chair and the Acting CEO responded to some of the questions. Again, yes, the other one on the outreach. On the outreach, we educate learners, parents on all the online harms, irrespective of what is in the Act. So the issues of online bullying are being dealt with, the issues of gender-based violence, online grooming, and the importance of young children to ensure that they don't access platforms that they are not allowed to access. And maybe, Chair, to add, to inform the committee, we have even done the research on the impact of social media to South African. And as part of that, we've run some questionnaires, and some of the questions relate around the issues, whether have you been bullied and how that has impacted. So this is a continuous work that we are doing as FPB to ensure that we have real evidence in terms of how South Africans are experiencing social media. Thanks, Chair.
Sorry, I was struggling to unmute there. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, colleagues. I think let's bring this matter to a close. Maybe we can just check with Sisno Sisi representing the department if there's anything they would like to add. Acting DDG content.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. No, there's nothing from our side as a department. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we've come to the end of our agenda. I'm hoping Honorable Bodlani will say we really tried to manage time in this meeting. I think it worked well. We even have 30 minutes to spare. Just one or two notices, members, on Thursday. We are proposing a meeting before the start of caucuses between 9 and 10, a meeting of the subcommittee on the MDDA appointments, and then to make a request to the content advisors if they could start with a briefing document for the members ahead of our scheduled interaction with the mobile network operators. I think it's on the 15th. I may just get my dates wrong. On the 13th, Friday the 13th. I think it would be important that we get a briefing document, since we have not engaged them before, to understand, the ecosystem in general, and obviously some of the pressing issues that have been coming up on a regular basis in the committee that we require them to respond on. I'll make examples, things like the universal service obligations. Whenever we ask, it's pushed back to the MNOs. On school connectivity, whenever we ask, it's pushed back to the MNOs. So it would really assist the committee to have something of that nature that we can utilize as a guiding document for our interactions. Honorable Subrathi?
Chairperson, I just want to inquire. I do recall you requested that the approval of the minutes will be carried forward. Just reminding.
Yes, I was actually coming back to that.
Thank you.
I did receive a request. I'm not sure if the advisors can confirm. During the meeting, they indicated that they were still going through the document, and also had asked Honorable Vilagazi for any inputs. Was that matter finalized? Do we then have the minutes, or are you requesting that we defer them to the next meeting? I'm not sure who sent me the meeting. Dr. Medupe?
Good morning, Chair. It's myself. Yeah, we have received some. Sorry about that. Morning, Chair, or good afternoon rather, and afternoon to the members. We have received some high-level pointers from Honorable Lagas with regard to the comment that he raised earlier on. What we then requested to the Chair, and will still plead with the committee, that we be allowed that we go through the recordings again, just to contextualize, the high-level pointers that he raised. Indeed, we would request that the meeting stand down. I mean, the minutes rather stand down for the next meeting until those pointers have been considered and the minutes amended accordingly. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. I don't think that it is an unreasonable request. So those minutes then we will take in the next meeting. Just very quickly to check with the Secretariat and the content advisors if there is any other matter. I'm hoping that you may have already gotten any sense of arrangements for Honorable Sithole.
Chairperson, just on my side, just to inform you, Chair, that we did receive a letter from the Deputy Minister. So the Deputy Minister has apologized for this meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Ngoma, anything on Honorable Sithole?
Chairperson, there is little information that I received, but I don't think it would be okay for me to share it now. But I have been promised by both the House Chairperson, Ms. Matrosi, and Ms. van der Merwe, that as soon as that information is available, they would make it available to me, and then I will share it with the members on the group. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Could I ask also that, as far as possible, members and committee staff, if we are able to pay our respects to Honorable Sithole, that we all make an effort to do so. Okay, then, yeah, we don't know what to do with extra time, so we may as well bring the meeting to a close. Honorable members, thank you so much for your participation, your insightful engagement as always. And members of the subcommittee on MDDA, we will meet on Thursday. Otherwise, our next meeting, if I'm correct, is next week. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chairperson.
All right. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, goodbye.
Thank you, Chair.